Yeah, try the veal. That's right.
Okay.
All right, boys. Let's see.
You seem like you peak on the microphone every once in a while. You kind of fade out.
Who?
Well, that's what I'm hearing. You.
Well, that's your
yeah.
fault. That's your fault.
That's probably is my fault.
Probably is.
My shitty connection.
Might want to do a shitty connection podcast for that. Okay.
That's a great idea.
All right, boys. I'm going to silence you guys. We're on in 5 seconds here. Let's have a great show, everyone. Enjoy your night, because the Woo kicks off the week right now. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. If you want to listen to our archives, we have them free for you by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find us on our website. It's guru time once again as the crypto guru Ronald Murphy is back to tell us some creepy stories heading into All Hallows Eve. Yes, the crypto guru is a studious one who collects the finest legends and lore to present them to you. And tonight we are also joined by the guru's podcast partner, Bryan Bowden, who literally has about 1,268 podcasts out there that he currently hosts. I think he's got about 17 of them running right now, but it's nice to see that he is able to squeeze one in for us as well. These two guys are some of the best researchers when it comes to the woo, so if it's the woo that you want, then we shall deliver you to the promised land. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Mr. Crypto Guru, usually you are here for the distance, but you might not be tonight because you are battling one heck of a flu, my friend.
You know what? Yeah, this is the thing. I am so happy to be here. We had booked this appearance probably, I'm thinking, about a month and a half ago. Looking forward to it. At work last week, I think it was on Monday or Tuesday, had to get the mandatory flu shot. Felt fantastic. On Friday, I started to feel a little bit under the weather. On Saturday, I was unable to move. Sunday, I was completely out of commission. And then today, I got the COVID test because I had no idea what was going on. Came back negative, but it just appears that I have some sort of, I'm thinking reaction to this flu shot. Whatever the case may be, I will be on the mend, but I was at the ER very early today, so I am going to be here. I would not let you down. I would not let the people in the SOR, see, I'm out of it, SOR chat room down, or anybody else, any of the listeners, but I thought I would be here just for a little bit because it's not going to be Halloween unless I talk to you, Dave.
Oh, very true, very true, and we're glad that you are toughing one out. You're coming out of the penalty box in order to do this for our audience. And I'm anti-flu shot. I had one flu shot, man, in my entire life. And my cousin's a doctor, okay? And he actually vaccinates people when they go on far off vacations to another land far, far away, and he gives flu shots to everyone who wants one. And I could tell you this, man. I was talking to him about this a couple of years ago, and he goes, how come you haven't come in to see me for your flu shot? And I said to him, Darren, I have no intention to. And he's like, why? I said, because the one time I got a flu shot, this was back in 1999, I have never been more violently ill in about a 4-week span than I was in ever before. And I've never been that sick in my life ever since, knock on wood, and I hope I never am. But for me, I'm just not a flu shot guy. It reacts, apparently in 31% or 32%, he said, the flu shot just works very adversely to the immune system.
Right, and I think that's obviously what I was facing. I thought I might have just had a common cold or something, but then, my eyes started to swell shut, and I had this terrible sinus drainage thing going on. So whatever it was definitely an onslaught onto my immune system. And, they don't even know which flu is going to be out this year. So I might be vaccinated for one, but I catch the other one later, whatever the case may be. But, I think I'm going to survive.
Perfect. We kind of need you around here. Let's bring in Bryan Bowden here, the other guy who is with us tonight, because I can tell that, Bryan, you're hearing a podcast come out of this.
If I talk to Ron on a daily basis, and I'm surprised he didn't listen to my "Don't Get the Flu Shot" podcast. Clearly would have told him, "You're out of your freaking mind to get the flu shot." Yeah, no, I'm with Dave on this. I got one back in the '90s, just when the Gulf War was starting, and I was delusional. I was sick for a week, and I was like, "Never again will I get that kind of crap in my body."
No, and some people it just does. It works adversely. And others, not a thing. They don't skip a beat. I'm jealous of those people. Jealous of those people.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, but it has given me a lot of time to write. So as many podcasts as Bryan is putting on, I like to try to have about as many books out as humanly possible.
As you should.
So I was I'm actually now because I've been through so much horrendous crap in 2020, which and I think that we all have. I think that the frequencies are off and everything. So I've decided to write my first self-help book entitled, appropriately enough, Harmonics of Humanity. So I am now venturing into that kind of realm, never leaving the cryptids behind, but I'm definitely taking a different approach to the way we look at one another, the way we look at healing, the way we look at, basically everything. And, of course, Bryan is my cohort in this as well, too. He's putting my book together, so I'm hoping that it will be out here within the next couple of weeks. I would love to, do a show on this down the line as well, too. I think that we really do need to examine the way we look at, like I said, at health, the way we look at the way we treat the environment, everything, because it does impact us very, very much. For the most part, we just go by what people say. We take our medicine and on we go. But I think there is something to be said about, alternative ways of looking, of healing yourself. I really do. You had mentioned to me that you like to partake of some sort of, hot sauce, some sort of thing to clean up the system. That is, basically a part of nature, no pharmaceuticals involved and everything. And it works for you. And, I've been doing a lot of research in aromatherapy and a lot of research even into color therapy. And I think there's a lot to be said about allowing your body just to simply harmonize with the world around you and develop its own healing. I think that we have forgotten that as human beings, and I think a part of us has atrophied as well, too. I think that natural healing response that we have to things that are thrown at us is naturally de-evolving simply because we turn to medicine so quickly.
Well, just do me one favor, because Guru, I will ban you from the show if all of a sudden the crypto guru becomes life coach guru. Because there's a term, honestly, there is a term right there, life coach. You ever notice, I've done some homework on about 30 or 40 of these life coaches just to kind of see if I could find a pattern, because that's the fancy thing the last couple of years is everybody calls himself a life coach. And it amazes me, you go on their social media, how much drama they have in their own lives. How can you teach someone else if you are filled with drama?
See, that is the whole
Yeah.
point. What I'm doing is building upon all of my mistakes that I have done in life. Is basically learn from me. Now, I've been working as a counselor in some aspects for the majority of my adult life. And over the summer, I recently got my graduate certificate from Temple University in strength-based family work. So I am taking a bit of a clinical approach to this as well, too. And I do understand, look, Bryan and I have been to conferences before when we have found people that classify themselves as hug specialists. Where
God.
these guys are charging $20 to give somebody a hug, and they'll lay down on the floor with them, and they will hug them and everything, and they apparently make a living doing this because without fail the guy had girls lined up for them to get hugs from, and he was not he's not a Tom Cruise or a Brad Pitt in any way, more along the lines of Zach Galifianakis, but it was really stunning to see. I think that you can go onto the internet and print yourself up any kind of degree nowadays, but I do approach everything, even the world of the cryptozoological, from a very scholarly aspect. My foundation is always going to be based upon, some sort of academic approach, or we all stand upon the shoulders of giants. So I'm looking into the past and seeing how very respected people have done these kind of things. But I agree. Whenever it comes to life coaches or relationship coaches that have been on their seventh marriage, I see that all the time. But I think that whenever the approach that I'm taking is going to be vastly different than that.
Right. Something to add to that is, Ron and I have a lot of conversations off air. We talk about different research, different, parts of the paranormal and also the woo. And, a lot of I've discussed with him, I've been very heavily researching frequencies and different frequencies like the God frequency. And I was mentioning it with Ron, and Ron's, kind of caught some of that initially, and then we started talking more about it. When you talk about these different frequencies, you had Ron Moorhead on, and I think a lot of this has to do quantitatively with solving that woo problem, or I love the woo. And I think we can explain a lot of the woo that we get in paranormal if we actually are able to look within ourselves and figure out our frequencies and how we resonate when we go out into those fields.
Absolutely. I think that's a lot of things that people are overlooking. I've said this before. People that have had experiences in the supernatural seem as if the supernatural is being drawn to them, that they are somehow emitting the certain frequency that everything just kind of lines up and materializes. I truly believe that. The more I look at people and the more that I study people, it seems that those people are the most open to this kind of thing are the ones that are getting the first-hand encounters and the experiences and the amazing things that Bryan has done regarding UFOs. I really think that is something to be said, and we often overlook that. That, whenever we approach the paranormal, it's really a two-way street. Not only are we, out there looking for things, but we're also putting out there our own intentions. And I think that really does form the basis for, communication and encounters. I truly do.
Guys, everybody loves the woo at this time of year. And Guru, because we may be on shortened time with you, I kind of want to get right into it here. It's Halloween, and people like to get scared at this time of year. They start telling their ghost stories and their personal encounters with, a friend of a friend of a friend who used a Ouija board, in 1983, and something bad happened. There was a knock at the door or something. We see that all the time, but there are some creepy stories out there. What do you think's creepier, dealing with the cryptids or dealing with, these paranormal hauntings and these legends around things like Ouija boards or seances?
Well, see, I think it's from your very own perspective, and it's very subjective as well, too. It varies from person to person. I always have been creeped out by cryptid encounters until I've become more enmeshed in in ghosts. I've been lucky that I've been doing a lot of work at a place here in Pennsylvania called Hillview Manor. It's one of the most active places I've ever, well, it is actually the most active place I've ever investigated, and it's considered the most active haunted place in Pennsylvania. It's not an exceptionally old structure. It was built in the 1920s as a poorhouse, and it eventually became a home for the elderly. And it closed relatively recently, within the past couple decades. But there's a lot of history there, and there are a lot of hauntings as well, too. I will give you a couple of very, very quick things that has happened there, and I think that you'll be, quite surprised. I mean, I find some of the stuff inexplicable, but so I was there one time with my daughter Willow. I was giving a talk on ghosts, and one of the theories is that if you want to experience a ghost, it's a good thing to have an adolescent child with you, especially a girl. So, I never let my audience down, so I actually provided an adolescent girl in the form of my daughter Willow, and we went to Hillview Manor to do an investigation that was being filmed by the Spirit Realm Network. So if anybody wants to go and look this up, it's thespiritrealm.net. It was actually recorded. So if anybody wants to look at this, I will give you my story, and then you can go back and look at it and see how it played out. But as I pull up in my vehicle with my daughter, I get out, and a gentleman comes up to me and says, "Are you Ron Murphy?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Well, we're glad you're here because our spirit box has been saying your name all day." Now, see, this is starting to get a little bit freaky now because I am just simply there to do one of my little, dog and pony shows. I'm sitting there going to give you a talk on ghosts. I'm going to be accompanying you guys as we go through this haunted former, hospital and everything. But I had no idea that these kind of things happen, especially in regards to me, because I've never had this happen before. And then people start coming up to me because they were downloading these kind of spirit boxes onto their phone, different types of things, whether it's static or it's picking up other radio stations. But it was continually bringing up my name, which is extremely, extremely odd. Ron's not a very common name anymore. And some of the apps were even printing it up on the phone as well, too. So it wasn't just you listening. It was also, it was also appearing as my name. Now, what also happens very strange in this is that my mother and my grandmother, who had both passed, who I was very close to, their name was both Helen, and that is starting to appear on the spirit box as well, too, in relation to my name. So already there's something very, very strange going on. So we go into this area called the chapel that, once served as the chapel for the hospital, for the nursing facility. And we were in there just to do a ghost investigation. That was it. And we were told that one of the former residents really liked Johnny Cash. And, the person that was leading the investigation said, who here likes Johnny Cash? And, you hear the static and, you hear somebody's name come up, and I forget the name now looking back on it. But they said, what is your favorite Johnny Cash song? And through the spirit box, again, it's picking up radio stations and such, Ring of Fire comes up. I mean, just those words, just those three words, Ring of Fire comes up. It's Johnny Cash's voice. Somehow the spirit box was able to locate that and then throw that out into the reality of the room. Now things start becoming a little bit more interesting because the leader, the host of this evening, was sitting up on this dais. He was sitting up away from everybody. And then the spirit box was starting to say that they didn't want him up there anymore, that they wanted me to come up and sit up there. Now, again, this had never happened to me, this kind of communication going on. So I went up there and sat, and then it asked for my daughter to come up there and sit. It actually said Willow. And again, this has never happened before. She comes up and sits there. At this point, there's a lot of electricity in the room. They have different types of EMF meters up there and different types of other kind of electromagnetic readers, and everything is going full tilt at this time. It was really, really kind of amazing to see. And then through the spirit box comes the sound of a child that says, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." And it sounds just like my youngest son, Ronald. I mean, it got me to the point where it was actually making me fairly emotional because it sounded like there was a child there in very serious need. As the evening progressed, and I'm not talking about like hours as this progressed, but I'm talking about over the course of about a half an hour or 45 minutes, which is extremely, extremely swift. It starts asking if we could open the door in the room. And I didn't even know there was a door in the room. Here it was covered up. And I eventually was able to uncover it because there was a plastic tarp over it, basically so nobody would break into the room whenever there was nobody there. So I uncovered the plastic tarp, and the voice asked me to open up the door. And then I opened up the door, and then the voice on the spirit box said that it was afraid. Again, never encountered anything like this. And it asked if Willow, my daughter, would go out with it. Okay. So
the woo box.
Yeah.
The ghost on the woo box is trying to hit your daughter up for a date.
Nope, you there, Dave? You're breaking up on me.
Sorry,
buddy. I can't. Okay, there you are. That's
sorry. The woo box is hitting up your daughter for a date.
Well, that's what it sounded like, but I think that it was asking. I think that it was saying that it was afraid because it didn't want to go out the door by itself. See, I think that we may have been dealing with the spirit of a child that simply was a little bit, didn't know exactly what was going on. There was another person who was young in the room, and it simply did not want an adult to accompany it. I truly feel that that's the thing that had happened, because whenever my daughter finally got up, and again, she was very emotional. Whenever she finally got up, she walked out of the room and she walked through the door. And I swear to you guys, this is absolutely true. You can go and watch this. She steps out of the door. The spirit box at this point says, "I love you," and all the electricity stops. Everything just shuts off, and the room is in total blackness. I feel, in my heart of hearts, again, no scientific proof or anything like this, but I feel that night that there was a child, and for whatever reason was caught here on this dimension, and it was just seeking somebody that would understand its plight to pass it on. That it was just a naturally afraid type of feeling that, for whatever reason it was bound there, and for whatever reason it was afraid to leave, and, it was waiting for somebody to come to pass it on. I truly feel that that's what happened. To me, instinctually, that's what I feel that happened. And I was covered in emotions. I was weeping openly because it felt as if whatever was in that room now was gone. And it was not a forbidding type of presence. It was a very, almost a sad type of presence. And after that particular incident, nobody else was getting any kind of communications. Nothing else was going on. Now, that's not to say that all the spirits have crossed over, but I'm saying that in particular instance, I truly feel that that's what had happened.
Well, we only got about 10 seconds left, so Bryan, I'm going to get you to hold on here, and I promise we will get to Bryan Bowden here on Spaced Out Radio as well. But when the crypto guru gets going, it's very hard to stop him. And we're going to continue on with some Hallowoo tonight on Spaced Out Radio with the Crypto Guru and Bryan Bowden. Here we go. Right into the first break. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. All right, boys.
Yep.
All right.
There was somebody asking if we're a couple, Ron.
Oh, that's
I heard that.
That's Barther L and the Third Nipple Crew.
Wait, who asked that?
Barther L and the Third Nipple Crew.
Oh, right.
They finish each other's sentences.
Yeah,
that's what they said.
Yes. Well, we've been together for long enough now. It probably does start feeling like that. So, yeah.
You know, you gel on so many levels that it's like any friendship I've ever had. We can finish each other's sentences. We know each other well enough to do that, you know.
That's right, yeah.
It's kind of cool when that happens, when you gel with somebody, and you work on the same plan.
It is. And again, I really think that place in Michigan is just begging for a spaced out radio conference. I mean, if we could make that happen, if all this COVID crap goes away, I think that would be an amazing thing to, have a couple talks, a few hours before the show, and then just simply rip with a live show from 12 until 3 right there.
Right. I mean, and, the only problem we have is we have to get Caitlyn Jenner, the governor, out of there. They got to recall the Michigan governor, Caitlyn Jenner, to get that happening. But that's pretty cool. Your daughter was asked out on a date.
Yeah, no, I didn't quite see it as a date. I think that it was simply but she was really shocked by this whole event as well too, and she's an ardent skeptic. She has no problems telling me that I'm full of shit. So
they are the best.
This is very true. They
are the best. I took my oldest, who's going to be 13, on the 30th, up to the closing count of the fifth kind. They took her with me, and she was just blown away by it, and she had a ton of questions and a little bit taken back by it because we saw some objects and that were very unusual, and but it's I like that curiosity. Like this is what your old man's into. This is what he does. Don't make me get those aliens out when the boyfriends come knocking.
That's right. But you know what, though, Dave? After that event, the local newspaper found out about our time up there, so they decided to run an article on Willow and I, and they put it on the front page with a picture of me and a picture of her. And every time we went into a store, she was sure to find the paper and turn it upside down so nobody would see her picture.
Yeah. Hey, one second here, guys. Bryan, not to be a jerk here or anything, but
what?
The Michigan governor, that's Gretchen Whitmer, man, and I got a lot. We're still live on YouTube as a reminder, and we try not to get politically incorrect or anything. So.
Yeah. No, it was just a little bit of a joke, and I don't want to offend anybody. I know who Gretchen is, and I don't agree with her policies, but
I know
she is the governor.
I know she is the governor elected by the people for the people.
Yes, and it is a great state, Michigan. So I have no problems with Michigan whatsoever.
Yes.
I have a couple of family members out of Michigan, too. So.
I appreciate that.
Well, good. So maybe those people in the fine state of Michigan did hear us, and they are saying, you know what, I think it would be great next summer to put on an SOR conference up here at our bar, and we would pack that place up, I promise you.
Bigfoot Michigan Rob needs to bring us all out there, man. He needs to bring us all out there, and we got a party there, and I'm looking forward to that. We'll all head down to Scoreboard Lounge, and we'll have a big.
That's what I'm talking about.
A woo weekend. A woo weekend.
I am telling you. And there's some of the finest investigators in the state of Michigan. You have Rod Blair up there and Sault Ste. Marie, who's done a tremendous amount of research in ghosts and sea monsters and things like that, or lake monsters up in that area. So you would be able to fill this up with a lot of local researchers.
Yeah.
I think that it would be a great event. I truly, truly do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We got about 45 seconds. Thank you to Michael Boyle for the super chat tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We really do appreciate the love and support, Mike. Thank you so much, even though you continually say I look like a Randy Quaid clone. But we'll let that go. We'll let that go. And, the other thing, too, that we want to remind people is a good way to support this show is by hitting that subscribe button and hitting that bell. So that way you know when we're going to be coming on. If you're not around 9 p.m. Pacific and all the way out east every hour. Next time zone. Bartherell and the Third Nipple Crew, thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate your lack of humor here tonight. Thank you. Thank you very much. Here we go, guys. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the... Where am I? I'm in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. I want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, do me a favor. Go check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, and special guest, the man with 1,522 podcasts, Bryan Bowden. We always appreciate these gentlemen coming on in. You can listen to their joint podcast, Inside the Goblin Universe. Just Google that. They got a website on that. They got everything on that because they're really good dudes out of the state of Pennsylvania and New York, and we appreciate them being here. Gentlemen, welcome back.
No place I'd rather be. How about you, Brian?
Oh, no place I'd rather be. It's late, but I love the SOR family that's always online. I love Dave, so I'm more than happy to be here.
All right, let's...
Absolutely. The place I do want to be is at scoreboards, though. I will keep that up. I will say that until we are finally at scoreboards.
That'll be good. And for people who are wondering, we're trying to convince, once this whole COVID mess is over, we plan on a big road trip to the beautiful state of Michigan to go to Bigfoot Michigan Rob's Scoreboard Lounge, where we can have a good party and talk woo all night long. And that is the goal. Mm-hmm. That is completely the goal.
That is the goal. That is the goal. That's exactly right.
Live show from there, too. That'd be great, a live show.
All right.
Boom.
Let's move on here, gentlemen, as we continue on with Spaced Out Radio tonight. And I want to, get into some cryptid woo here, because there's a lot of people who wonder if the Headless Horseman is real. There's a lot of people who wonder if there's really trolls under the bridge or witches flying around come full moon. Because I swear one time I saw my former mother-in-law treading lightly on her air-conditioned car. All right? But honestly, Brian, I mean, there's a lot of weird stories out here that continually spark the imagination around Halloween time. What's a cryptid one that sticks with you?
There's a great story. I'm really close to Sleepy Hollow. So the legend of Sleepy Hollow and the Headless Horseman. I've been in that cemetery many, many times. There's the bridge. If you go into the cemetery in Sleepy Hollow and you take the tour, and I highly recommend you take the tour because the owner will get a little upset. But if you take the tour, they do offer a night tour around Halloween. And there is a rumor that when you go to the tour, when you stand on this bridge that goes over this creek, there is some chatter underneath the bridge. And there's also some knocking. And everybody to this day is stated that there is a troll that lives underneath that bridge. And if you don't acknowledge a troll, if you don't knock back, so I'll give you 3 knocks. You got to do 3 knocks, knock, knock, knock. Bad things will happen to you when you leave the cemetery and the tour and you go on your way. And there have been a couple of people that have actually didn't heed the message. They've been to that cemetery, they mocked it, they laughed it off, and wouldn't you know it, a couple people hit deers on the way home. Things magically fell in the roadway, non-alcohol related. So that's one story that usually creeps up around this time of year. And Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go investigate
I think
that as soon.
Yeah, to just piggyback on what Bryan said, Washington Irving, the author of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, he didn't write in a vacuum. Like, he actually was part of that area. He knew a lot of the local legends and everything. And even before he wrote The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, if you look at Rip Van Winkle, there are tales, of experiencing ghosts in the Hudson Valley region. And if you would go to Sleepy Hollow to this very day, you go to the graveyard, and some of the people who are in the book, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, are actually buried in that cemetery. So, the lead female, Katrina Van Tassel, she actually, you can go see her grave. You can see the grave, or you can see the old church there. That's the second oldest church, actually, I believe, in New York. It's not in America. It might be the second oldest church in America, but it's definitely a very, very old church. So whenever he wrote The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, he had very particular people in mind. He also had a geographical place, a setting for his story, and he used some of the local folklore and legend that surrounded that area to bring his story to life. So when we talk about that, we're not so much talking about a fantastical story made up in an author's mind. We're talking about something that actually had true currency to people at the time, and that's what I find so fascinating. And if anybody wants to read, Washington Irving, he's a very good writer. He's not like that kind of very stoic and stay type of writer that you would find for that particular time period. His books actually move along quite quickly, and they have a very modern feel to them. So, I mean, on this Halloween, if you want to read The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, it'll probably only take you about 45 minutes, and it's a really, really cool story, and it has settings and characters all related to that particular town.
Something of interest about that. My brother lived in Irvington at one point, which is just shy of the Sleepy Hollow area there. And there's an aqueduct, and it's a long roadway that goes all the way up to Putnam County, which is pretty far up. And along the aqueduct, they have a lot of these stone chambers that pockmark up into New England. And some people have said, oh, they're root cellars. We've investigated those stone chambers. In some of them, they have runic writing on the back wall, but you need to have a UV light or an ultraviolet light or an infrared to actually see it, to make it come out. Otherwise, it looks like nothing's on there but moss. But something of interest, my brother was a runner, he jogs a lot, and he swears up and down, and I used to make fun of him, but he was running along the aqueduct, and he got into the Sleepy Hollow area, and I think this was Halloween, and as he's running up there, he says, and he swears on a stack of Bibles, he saw the headless horseman riding on a horse.
No
He
way.
saw something riding on a horse. I said, you got to be kidding me. He goes, I kid you not. And he's one of those straight-laced kind of guys. He doesn't believe in any of this hokey-pokey stuff, that we talk about, which turns out to be real. But so from this day forward, I've always tried to get in that area for the most part because, hell, I want to see the headless horseman. I want to see that head without a head.
Yeah, but you know what? Not only that, I mean, that whole area is, the first cases of flying triangles are in that particular area as well, too. And if we move back farther in time, the first sighting of the Flying Dutchman took place on the Hudson River. So we think about these kind of oceanic sightings of this ghost ship and everything. This area, this very, very small geographical area, is just populated with legends of not only, witches and black magic, but also ghosts and also, Bigfoot sightings as well, too.
Yes.
So this is really a very, very good area. And if you want to spend a great Halloween, I would not recommend a place like Salem because none of that had anything to do with the Halloween season. That almost happened exclusively over the period of the summer in 1692. But if you want to talk about things that happen where the veil between this world and the next is at its thinnest, the Hudson Valley area is by far the first place that I would stop.
Oh, yeah. We had in the 80s, we had the Hudson Valley UFO sightings that went across from northern New Jersey into New York up into Connecticut. a lot of these, they saw a craft not that far from where Sleepy Hollow is in that Hudson Valley area. There was a woman, there was a nurse getting out of Westchester Medical, and she was trying to get on the ramp to go home. And as she was getting out and she's driving, she saw a mile-long UFO hovering over the Taconic Parkway. And she's been interviewed, and she, everybody asked her, what did you do? What did you do? She goes, I went home. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, but I had to go home. I mean, it's pockmarked. It's not only, Washington, Irving, and Sleepy Hollow, but you're also talking about Whitley Strieber and Communion, Hudson Valley. And this is where, I know people that have had these experiences with aliens, and when they saw that cover of that book, they just could not, go out for a while. It really freaked them out. That's because these tales, although they sound like folklore, they're based in a lot of fact. And we are the guys that are trying to get to the bottom of that. That's what we do.
How can we prove it's fact, though? I realize there's legends, there's stories, there's creative writers, there's woo.
Right.
But how do we take a story like The Headless Horseman and bring it to fact? Would that be something along the lines of a tulpa?
I think it's a partial tulpa, but what you have is, it's really interesting that people are coming across these different type of documents. It's little by little they're finding in old houses. They're renovating some of the old houses up there, and they're finding documentation in written word, and where it's expressing that an experience or an interaction, or they're discussing this giant moon that was hovering over the town. If someone's seeing a giant moon hovering over the town while there's a full moon in the town, there's got to be some kind of truth to that. Don't get me wrong. When you have the tulpas and psychologically, people, it was very dark back then, little light, little nothing. It's kind of scary. Who knows how much the psyche played on that? But there are documents slowly coming out that are saying exactly what these people are writing. So that's where the truth would come from.
Right.
But again, none of us, until we can go back in time, which I haven't fixed my time machine yet. We're just gonna have to go from what was told, and then when you find uncover other information based on, town records or minutes, meetings like Mason meetings, and they discuss certain things that take place in there that people are finding. It's very interesting.
Well, here's the one thing though, guys. Whether it's the Hudson Valley, whether it's the Pennsylvania around Chestnut Ridge, whether it's what's the triangle in
the
Bridgewater Triangle. There seem to be all of these areas where all of this spooky stuff just seems to coagulate and mix together, Guru.
Yep. And that's a lot of the things that Bryan and I are actually working on in this other book. If he would ever sit down and get off his podcast and get it done, there seems to be, and that's one of the continuing connecting the dots that we're doing, is that it seems there are different parts of this world that are presupposed to these types of things. We're talking about things like earth energies or ley lines. There seems to be something about particular areas that have a power to them, okay? And I truly believe in the idea of ley lines. If you look at them, especially in the United Kingdom, where they were, played a very powerful role in early cultural development, you can see where there were pagan sites, and on top of those pagan sites, there were, Catholic churches built because there was some sort of energy present in there. I have no other way to describe it. I mean, as much as I've been investigating this from an academic point of view as well as a paranormal investigator's perspective, something about this area seems to bring out these types of phenomenon. And the only way I can express it by what's going on is there is something inherent within the earth itself. There is some reason that brings these things here. And not only is it able to bring certain type of phenomenon there. It is also able to elicit a response in whoever is there as well too. So it works on two very, very different levels. It works at a paranormal level. I don't like to use the word portal because it seems like kind of like a woo type of word, but but for lack of a better word, that's what seems to be happening. Some sort of window into another dimension. But that being said, it also seems to set up a person to be able to see these types of things as well too. It's interesting that over in England, people have done sleep studies in particular chambers and cairns, these Neolithic sites where people would go in and sleep the night, and then they would write down the kind of visions they would see. I think that is asking to be done in these stone chambers throughout the Hudson Valley area as well, too. I think there is something that can interact with the human psyche and the human imagination, and whether these things are manifested in a very tangible level, if somebody is actually seeing something called the Headless Horseman, or if they are, their mind is predisposed to seeing something like that, something is triggering that within them as well too. So it's a very complicated way to look at this kind of stuff, and it's also very interesting. Whenever we talk about fact and we talk about what kind of proof there is, again, I go back to the idea that this is all very subjective. Somebody could be there next to somebody else, and one person sees it, but the other person doesn't. It seems to be affecting the very electricity of that person, for whatever reason. But I truly believe that throughout the entire world, there are these centers of power. There's some sort of earth grid. There's something going on that allows not only for the manifestation of paranormal phenomenon, but also the ability for a person to witness this stuff as well too, to actually make it part of who they are.
So, something of interest. Well, we did an investigation. Ron wasn't part of it, but we did one on a stone chamber, a little bit north of Sleepy Hollow. And in the stone chamber, we started. I was using a FLIR camera. It's online under Bronxville Paranormal, and I like to use Tibetan singing bowls, and I use an app that has multiple different tones on it, which is different frequencies. And I started to play around with it, and it started ramping up. And what seems to be happening in this video, and I mentioned, I think we've started to open up a portal, because this purple like haze comes around, and it's almost like a circle, and it starts to develop. And I think if we stayed in there a bit longer, we really would have gotten a nice a bit of evidence on it. It was amazing.
Yes. Right. And I've told you the story. Bryan and I have actually investigated this site together, as a matter of fact, about a year ago, whenever we were out almost a year ago to the day, as a matter of fact, where I had a particular sighting or a particular encounter, let us put it that way, because I didn't see anything visually with my eyes, but I knew inherently, instinctually, that there was something there. But again, that kind of thing, whenever he sees this particular fog, what I saw was something that looked like static electricity forming in the air around me, as if something was indeed opening. Kind of like whenever you pull the cover off of your bed at night and you see that kind of electricity. Yep. It appeared that was what was going on in the environment, that there was something being pulled, literally being changed within the environment itself. And is that indeed what we're seeing? I mean, have people been seeing this stuff throughout all time, and we just didn't know what it was? But is that the idea of a portal indeed opening? Is that what we're witnessing?
And something getting into the wooer end of it, when you're talking about a cryptid like Sasquatch, there's been a lot more reports lately that when there's a correlation between Sasquatch and light anomalies. Lightning,
absolutely.
Light affects UFOs. Just imagine being back in the 1700s or 1600s in North America, and you just see this bluish like lightning just appear in near that stone chamber, because what's happening is something or someone may be using it as a portal and coming in and out. I mean, that is just mystical. And in certain instances, we can go into those woods and stay there, put a camera on it, and you will catch that. It's
absolutely.
And it's very strange that it's only in select areas, but the Hudson Valley is just teeming with different activity.
Right, and then to say about, you said about the idea of like these colors and things like that associated with it, it's very interesting to point out that, you know, whenever we talk about Bigfoot, or when we look through the archives of Bigfoot encounters throughout time, in the area of Kentucky, back, I believe it was either the late 1700s or early 1800s. There was talk about people seeing what they would call the blue man. And it's interesting, you know, a bipedal hair-covered creature that they call the blue man. And, you know, I'm wondering from an investigator's point of view, was it so called simply because of the colors that were being emitting whenever it was being seen? The same way in Ben McDewey in the Scottish Highlands, you have the gray man up there, which is a Bigfoot-like character that seems to emanate from this kind of grayish fog. So again, we have the idea of, and also to, you know, promote my new book as well too, the idea of harmonics and frequencies. It needs to be pointed out that all colors have frequencies as well too. All colors vibrate at a very different wavelength and a very different frequency. And again, is it frequencies colliding? Now, let me put it this way: is your frequency the key that opens up the frequency into those worlds? You know, we think of ourselves as experiencers, but is it possible that we are the people that are opening the doorways just because the frequencies that we're putting out there allows that to happen? That kind of certain type of alchemy that allows these types of frequencies to join each other, that it flips a switch and opens up a doorway, for lack of a better word.
Makes a lot of sense. Gentlemen, we only have 2 minutes before we need to go to break. At the top of the hour, the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, and the man with 1 million podcasts, Bryan Bowden, are our guests tonight on Spaced Out Radio. As we prepare to go to break here, when I hear a lot of this story about all of these different energies and portals that are going around, and they seem to be everywhere. It could be on someone's, 10-acre farm. It could be in a 2,000-acre park, could be anywhere. And it just seems like, when the energy gets going, nothing will stop anything from getting in there. And I think for a lot of people, they may have that problem, Bryan, in 90 seconds here, okay, that they can't understand how you can have the paranormal, UFOs, aliens, cryptids, gargoyles, gnomes, trolls, everything in one small location.
Well, I mean, look at us as when we ventured over to North America, or any type of, we had a settlement, we always usually settled in the same location. So even though you may not be part of the group itself, you see people there, and there's more safety and security in numbers. So this is the concept. These beings, entities, and creatures may be working off each other, or they know that they go over there, let's go over there and see what we can get from it. And that's why they kind of converge into the same location, or for a while, for the most part. It's tough to understand because we have these events taking place and they come out of the blue. Like the guy that's flying from the Bahamas back to Florida, normally an hour trip, he sees a purple fog, he's going through it, he's there in 10 minutes. There's no way it could happen. These things just happen naturally. We're unaware of it, but quantitatively, we could probably explain it, but we're in the infancy of that alone. Somebody mentioned something up there about CERN. Let me tell you something. The first CERN was in the U.S. Through Illinois, and they shut that down rather fast in the year 2000. It was running, it was going, and if you want to talk about a correlation, how about that CERN being in operation just about the same time that the Mandela effect was taking place?
Well, there you go.
What did they open up there?
What did you do? Bowden,
Yep.
What did you do? All right, I got to get you guys to hold on right there because we are going to go to break at the top of the hour. We got the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, Bryan Bowden, podcast host extraordinaire, continuing with the Woo Talk, monsters, paranormal. It all continues right after this on Spaced Out Radio. How you feeling, Guru?
You know, I'm able to go for at least another half hour, dude. I'm just going to take it half-hour chunks at a time.
Beautiful, beautiful.
There
Okay, you guys talk cleanly to our YouTube audience because they are watching on in. And no politics, gentlemen. No politics. Because this is political for I'm gonna drop an elbow on you, Bowden. I'm gonna drop a friggin' elbow.
Just a joke. You know what? I think
you know what? Suplex you, man. I'm gonna go Iron Sheik on your ass next time I see you. Iran, number one.
I have to go Ivan Putski.
I'll be right back, guys.
But that was. Look, I don't want anybody to get offended. It's a joke. We'll move on from there, and we'll go on from that.
Let it go and just make it happen,
man. Yeah. I just mentioned that someone was in the chat. I'm watching the chat as it's going by as fast as possible. And I was looking at the CERN stuff, and that definitely deals with what we do,
Yeah, Dave, whenever we come back, I'd like to just kind of wrap up the idea of the location of.
He's not
Dave's
there.
Gone.
Oh
my goodness!
Dave went to take that dogs out.
Wow! Well, let me just address the fine folks then that are there at the YouTube channel. Whenever Dave comes back, remind him, please, that I want to kind of wrap up this idea of the locations of these particular portals and of these kind of events, because I think that we can show, relatively speaking, that, people do know about these kind of things and just kind of, wrap it up. How many people do we have on YouTube right now?
125.
Holy fudge, that's a lot of people.
Yes.
That is a lot of people.
125.
Yeah.
And if these 125 just shared it in their status update, then we could possibly, double that.
Yeah, I would say that we could double it or triple it, whatever the case may be. I have no idea. But I really, guys, I am impressed that there is that many people watching us on YouTube whenever you could be turning it over and watching a toddler open up toys, and I'm sure that he's getting like 15 million views. Yeah, or my kids are obsessed with YouTube. Sometimes they'll watch that all day long and not even bother, watching, with the $150 I pay every month for cable. But the YouTube is the thing to be on.
The record is 209. We just got that from Stu. Thank you, Stu.
Stu, dude, we got to get up over 209 people, guys.
I don't know. Maybe the Japanese contingency can come in and start pounding.
That's right.
Live chat.
Yeah. Or maybe you could piss off more people with your conservative political talk, Brian.
No. I am not going to say another F word. Nope. You know what?
But
I'm just way too uptight today, and I'm leaving it alone.
Yeah. Well, getting back to the idea of Michigan, and I've only been to Michigan one time. I did a conference up there, up in northern Michigan. But truly, it is a beautiful place. I've been kind of hankering to get back up there again. There is a lot of wilderness in Michigan. And not only that, but you also have this kind of, there's a lot of tells of lake monsters up there as well, too.
Lake monsters,
yeah. You get the intersection of two. You get the intersection of Michigan and Lake Superior up there as well, too. And I think, my book that I wrote on aquatic monsters of the Great Lakes, just to give a quick plug out there, who Brian did an amazing cover on, one of the really the best covers of paranormal books out there, that we could do a show up there where we could talk about not only ghosts and lake monsters, but also Bigfoot. And, if you really want to get into things, the first sighting of what we call the Dogman took place up in the great northern woods of Michigan. So I 100%. Think this would be a great thing. Now, I'm not in front of my television set or my computer thing here, but is the scoreboard people still on out there?
Yes, they're still on. And you know what? I'm thinking we need to rent submarines to look for those underwater pyramids. The Aztec pyramids are supposed to look there, too.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, for those people on there that did not know that, there's a place in Lake Michigan that is actually referred to as Stonehenge, as a submerged Stonehenge,
Yes.
because whenever the water levels were much lower, it seemed as if an indigenous population built a Stonehenge up there.
And that was incredible when I saw those images, the underwater sonar. That was great.
These
was the
great.
crazy things that validate, you know, the portal theories, the placement theories, and why Michigan attracts a ton of the Great Lakes alone attract a ton of objects not of this earth.
All right, guys, we got 45 seconds. 45 seconds.
Sure.
Okay.
Remember, we're going to wrap up. That's what you said, Ron. You wanted to wrap up.
Yeah, Dave. Yeah, I wanted to wrap up real quick, Dave, just about the idea of the portals and things like that, because I want to point out a couple things. It will be very, very brief, but I think there will be a deserved conclusion to this.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, gentlemen. Thank you to Michael for claiming that I look like Randy Quaid in the $2 super chat. Really appreciate that. It is a great way to support this show, along with hitting that subscribe button, that thumbs up or down, whatever you feel we deserve. And thank you so much for doing a little shopping at the SOR Vault on our website. Here we go with hour 2, everyone.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. I'm Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. Remember, you can check out all of our archives for free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Let's find it here. Where did you put it, Clam? There it is. Namora Vagant. Namora Vagant is your password. What it means, nobody knows, but the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight we are talking with the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, as we are talking haunted stories. We also got Bryan Bowden with us, who is the man with 1,000 podcasts. He is chiming on in as well. We're talking hauntings. What is causing them? Halloween time. Best way to talk about this subject is right now. Guru, welcome back. Bryan, welcome back.
Thank you.
Hey, glad to be here, buddy. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Guru, you wanted to finish up a point from last hour.
Oh, yes, about the portals. We talked about, locations of these things and all that kind of stuff. And then I just wanted to point out that whenever we think about portals, usually these places are in out-of-the-way places. When we think of like Stonehenge, we're talking about the middle of a plain, where of Salisbury Plain. We're talking about locations in Africa, and we're talking about locations in China that have pictographs of these circular spirals that seem to indicate something that you would think of as a doorway or something, some sort of phenomenon that allows for ingress and egress, some sort of entry and escape, if you will. But these are usually in very out-of-the-way, remote places. And whenever you see these pictographs, it's almost as if it's stating these are areas set apart from normal civilization. This is beyond where you should be. Same way with Stonehenge. That was a place where people probably attended maybe a couple times a year. Nobody lived there year round. This was a place where you would visit, and there was probably a lot of energy associated with it and a lot of dread associated with it as well, too. And I think that whenever you look at these pictographs, and you're more than welcome to look it up, these kind of pictographs that we see in deserts in North America, or we see in deserts in Africa, or in very remote places in China, all from right around the same period of time. These very different cultures are producing these kind of spiraling pictographs. But I will point out as well too that there were places in the United States that were known to have these pictographs as well too, and the government, oddly enough, chose to flood some of these places over as part of the Army Corps of Engineering. So there are some places that you would be considered sacred sites to Native American cultures that the government came in and completely made off limits by covering them up with water. That's an extremely true story. And then one more thing that Bryan was talking about with the notion of the CERN and the idea of the Mandela effect and everything like that, or even the Manhattan Project, all these kind of things. I told the story a few years ago on this show that there was a gentleman that was very interested in Tesla, and he designed a Tesla coil in his own home. Anybody that has the intelligence and wherewithal could do such a thing, but he made one in his room, one in his house, up in his attic. And he happened to fire it up one time, and he went back down after he had done it. I'm sure very filled with himself. And he then heard footsteps up in the attic as if something was walking around there. And his question was, whenever he turned this thing on, did he open up a doorway? Did this kind of energy open up a doorway into another world and allow something in? Now, what is exceedingly strange about this is the next day he gets a knock at the door. A purported government agency came in and took his little Tesla coil away from him. So, again, I think that, and I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but I think that the government does know a lot. I think governments all over the world know about these kind of things. And, we want to keep governments for, reasons that are probably very right, want to keep this kind of stuff out of everybody's hands because we really don't know what we're dealing with here.
No, very true. Very true. And these portals, Bryan, that seem to be popping up where people see everything from Bigfoot to strange creatures coming through, are they becoming more prevalent, or have they always been there and now we're starting to see, and pay more attention to what is really going on?
Well, I think they've always been there. But the problem we have now is we're playing with a lot more technology. And when you start playing with Wi-Fi signals and wireless signals, everybody's talking about 5G. What you're doing is you're actually adding a lot more energy and vibration to the atmosphere, and that's circumventing the globe. And these may be triggering a little bit more of these portals or juicing them up. A lot of David Palladi's stuff where people just disappear. I've heard these stories 1,000 times. They're incredible. But one of the most incredible one, I think there was someone out of Canada, some mountain rescue. They were doing some, I guess they joined a course in New York State. And he was skiing down the course. There was a freak storm that came out of nowhere. He just had his ski equipment on as a rescuer. And the next thing you know, he's calling his wife. He's in California. Instantaneously, he was transported from New York State to California. This has happened several times on this specific mountain. I've got the name of the mountain right off the bat. But this is what can happen.
These Lake Placid. Lake Placid.
Was it Lake Placid? I mean, just think about that concept. This is the same concept of the guy flying from the Bahamas to Florida, going through a portal, an energy vortex. I just think we're seeing more of them now because of, one, we played with CERN initially in the U.S., and now they want to build a bigger one, and they're planning on some other test that's coming up. And I really don't think they know what they're doing. And two, we're going through what we call an Earth cycle, an Earth change every 26,000, 27,000 years. So there's a lot of energy internally The axis are changing, magnetic north is changing. So it's the perfect storm, and we're living it. This is what I think the Mayans were talking about when, they talked about the end calendar 2012. This was an experience for them at the 26 to 27,000 year mark, and things got destroyed. So this is why these portals, I think, are appearing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another reason, too, is, a very practical reason, is there's still just more human sprawl. People are starting to move into places where they never lived before. That's the other thing, too. Just for lack of land, people are starting to move into areas that were once, considered off limits.
True, but does that make it any different for these portals? I think one of the people who is mainly on this, but will not discuss it publicly, is David Paulides. All right, because
right.
A lot of his missing 411 cases, I honestly believe that a lot of these people have walked into portals, and on their new timeline, everything is the same, but on ours, they're gone.
Right. Absolutely, yeah. Because that's the one thing that Bryan and I state all the time. The idea of time itself is a human construct. Time doesn't exist. Exactly. Yeah, we base it upon movements of the sun. It's basically just divide up our days so we know when to work and we know when to sleep. That kind of thing. But time itself is a theoretical construct by what human beings have put there, and that's absolutely the case. Now, David Paulides comes about this from a very detective type of way, and I'm glad that he does. That's what he was trained to be. But if you would go back and just look at the annals of history, the idea of people disappearing, is much older than any of his 411 books. And then again, we look at place names like the Superstitious Mountains or any of these other kind of great places around the world. The natives had called them places of dread and places of fear. And it's odd that whenever we talk about Bigfoot and we talk about UFOs, they all seem to be in relation to these kind of places. Even the Skinwalker Ranch. Isn't it odd that the Skinwalker Ranch is named after, a Navajo belief of a shape-shifting type of creature? I think that's what we really have to look at, that these places have always been there, but now, from different perspectives, we're calling them different things, but the instances have never changed. It's always been a place where people disappear and very strange things happen.
Definitely. The guru, crypto guru Ronald Murphy, and Bryan Bowden here on Spaced Out Radio. Gentlemen, there's a lot of monsters out there that seem to chase people, and those stories ever come out. Do we ever hear, because you guys are in kind of that Lichen Loop area there on the East Coast, mainly in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia, but there's dogman sightings right through the East Coast there. Do we ever get any reports, Ron, of dogman chasing people?
Well, the reports that I've gotten is that whenever they are seen, they're coming to you. I even had a report from somebody that works in the Game Commission about being in a very, very remote area, and whatever this creature was, some sort of bipedal canid type of creature, was actually following him in the wood line. Now, I'm not chasing him, but observing him. Now, getting back to the whole idea of missing 411, look, I think if one of these things chases you, it's not going to let up until it gets you. And I think, the idea of missing persons can also be applied to somebody had an encounter with a dog man and they simply were never seen or heard from again. I think that's another thing that we have to take into consideration as well.
Yeah. The latest report I got, there was a couple of gentlemen actually out of Texas, and they got a print. There was a couple of prints, but one solid print in like a mud puddle, and it measured 16 inches long. And the claws on this thing are like nothing I've ever seen before other than a dogman claw. When the way these creatures work, and it's very odd because I've had my own one-on-one with these things, and it was wasn't aggressive. It was just sitting there, and which was odd because I heard report after report of these things being very aggressive towards humans coming into the woods or coming into their territory. But they're extremely intelligent kind of creature. They not only are they intelligent, they like to mess with people. So if you have them in your area, we have one lady upstate New York. She has a store. She does fishing equipment, and she has a front bell on the front end of her house, and in the back in her driveway is the store. And 3 o'clock in the morning, both doorbells were going back and forth, bing, 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 bing. So she was a little freaked out. They also found a handprint, not a Sasquatch, but it was more Dogman-esque. You could see where there was more nail on her glass. It was upside down, and I was the one that pointed out that he was on your roof. These things can be very aggressive if they want to. Usually the ones that are aggressive are the ones going like the young Turks. There's also reports of the older ones that usually silver in color or look a little bit older. They keep these ones in check. Plenty of reports of a pair of dogmen going after something, and then they get called in by an elder or something on a ridge, and they stop what they're doing and they retreat and go to the elder. So it's one of the scarier cryptids that do exist, and I never wanted to believe it did.
That's right. And the other thing you have to point out as well, too, not only ringing doorbells, which I've heard before, or scratching at windows, this kind of stuff that if you're listening to this alone at night, you're going to check to make sure your door's locked, or you might turn on a light because this stuff is very scary. But, there have been reports out of places like Maine where these things have actually been heard, like communicating, like calling you out. These are the other things that are very scary as well, too, because it doesn't seem like we're talking about something that is typical and animal. It's something that has an intelligence and also a seemingly, form of communication as well, too. I mean, that is pretty scary whenever something is either, ringing your doorbell because it's trying to get a response out of you or physically calling your name. Now, my brother, who is an ardent skeptic about this kind of stuff, he took out his, he was walking his dog on his property. He owns about a few acres of land, and this is on the border of Pennsylvania and Ohio. So he's right in the loop, and he just filmed nothing but darkness because he wanted to get the sound. But he heard something that sounded like howling. I mean, not your typical howling, because we do have a lot of coyotes in our area, but this was a much, much different type of howling going on. And our good friend Bryan over there was able to analyze the film, and he actually got a speech pattern out of whatever was making these howls as well. And again, this is something that my brother had, just offhandedly recorded because he knew I was into this kind of stuff. And he heard, these howls that he could not quite explain. And it's interesting whenever you clean up the crickets and things out of it, it does sound like, something is saying, and I forget what it was verbatim there, Bryan, but it was something that was basically saying, come here or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, like come over here. It was very guttural. It wasn't like the samurai chatter, by the way, Dave.
No.
Bigfoot has a separate and distinct kind of vocalizations and tones. This was more, let me tell you, if you hear a dog, you will know when you hear a dogman. It rips through you. It's a very unnerving type of howl, but this was more like, a gruntal type of like, come here, like type of thing.
That's right.
It was pretty intense. It was great audio. Yeah. The thing is, too, like we call it dogman, which is, a uniquely American thing, and it's probably only, less than 50-year-old term. This is not a very old type of term. But whenever you talk about the idea of the werewolf, which I really, really like to study and write about, the word, the W-E-R-E in werewolf is actually an old medieval term that means man, man-wolf. And the reason why they denoted it as such is simply because it had an intelligence to it, and there may have also been a possibility these things are able to communicate in a very, a human way as well. And I think that's something that we really have to look at, because if you go back in time to the first instance, whenever we have like even the Anubis in Egypt, this idea, this synthesis of human and canine,
you have something that is very unique. It is at one time purely animalistic, but it also has an intelligence to it. And that's really what makes this thing so frightening, because you are confronting an animal that has the teeth and the claws of any animal out there, but also has the intelligence that maybe is on par with a human being as well. That's a very formidable type of creature, and to think that it's out there, this is the stuff of nightmares.
Oh, very true. Gentlemen, I want to get to a question from our audience here, because Flesh Wound is asking about, and we've talked about him in the past, but I think it's a creepy, creepy subject. These stairways that seem to be found going nowhere in the forests.
I was going to mention that prior to the break. I've been following these things. It's very creepy. And I didn't mean to interrupt, Ron, but people are just finding these. They're literally stairways to nowhere. And from what I've been researching, people are telling you do not go on those staircases. Now, I don't know what they're for and why would they be there. And some of them are very grand in scale. I mean, like gorgeous like someone was building a house and they put a staircase in. I got the immediate vibe when I started reading about some of these things that maybe they were like, that offering stand. The villagers grab that virgin or whoever it is, and they're going to offer to whatever the beast is in the woods. And they walk them up and tie them up on top of that stairs, and something comes out of the woods. I've yet to come across a staircase, and I'll tell you right up, I don't think I would actually walk up the stairs for just my own personal preference just yet. I'd have to do more research. But it's very odd, and it's very unnerving. Why are they there? Who's building them? What's their purpose? And again, let's go back to the portal theory. Maybe they are portals into another realm. Maybe they are offering sites for something that comes out of that portal. No one really knows. It seems to be a fairly new or recognized phenomenon, and that goes back to what Ron said, where people now are moving away from cities and further in the woods. It's crazy.
It is. And if anybody does have any information on locations of these things, please pass them on to Dave. Please pass them on to Bryan and I, because this is something that I would really like to start investigating as the weather clears and, spring and summer comes apart. So, please get the information out of there. We will do follow-ups on this, and if we can get you any kind of information, we will definitely provide it.
Definitely. I would love to see one of those. I don't know how I would react. Would either of you walk up there? I mean, it's brave to say in this situation now, but would either one of you really walk up one of those stairwells?
It would be tempting for me personally. I would really want to, but hearing some of the old, like reading some tales, like everybody says the same thing: do not walk on the stairs, do not go up the stairs, do not use the stairs. What do they know that I don't know? What I would like to do, though, is I'd like to maybe walk up partially and, kind of like try to use different type of cameras, like a full spectrum or an infrared and a FLIR, and see, maybe we're not seeing something that's actually right there in front of our face.
Hey, that's a good point. Wouldn't that be? Yeah, there might be actually a door up there. We just simply cannot see it with our own light spectrum. That's very possible.
Just trips me out, man. Trips me out. Well, I'm not going up. I am not going up. Let's get to
what I would suggest is actually using a drone to walk up those stairs. Fly a drone in that way and see what the heck happens.
All right.
I think that's a great idea. Great idea. Yeah, but because Bryan and I have known each other and we have investigated on our own, this year is going to be a concerted year where we are going to actually get out there and do a lot of research on these, especially like these small town legends and things. So if any of the listeners, any of the viewers out there have any leads on these areas, hey, you know what? We would gladly get together. We'll talk to you about that, and let's do some investigation. Nobody else is doing an investigation on this stuff, and Bryan and I like to go where a lot of people are not investigating. Kind of opening up the door on some new things.
Yeah.
So if you know any of this kind of stuff, let us know, guys. We will be there.
All right, gentlemen, you guys hold on because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour on Spaced Out Radio. This show is flying by. It always does when we have the Crypto Guru on, as it continues with Guru Time here, and special guest Bryan Bowden. Monsters, strange happenings in the forest. It all leads around Halloween and the weird and strange that the month of October is. We continue on Spaced Out Radio right after this.
One of the best guitars ever.
Oh, you must be talking about Bumblefoot.
Yes, I am.
Yes, man.
He's amazing.
Now, Guru, we got a bunch of new people in our chat room who may not have heard of you or heard your stories before, but I'm getting requests, and I already know the answer, but I'm going to tell you right now. They want to know, breakfast for dinner, yes or no?
Again, you know what? We've had this discussion before, and I find it odd that anybody would plan breakfast for dinner. Okay, I just find it incongruous. It doesn't make any sense to me. Have I had breakfast for dinner? Yes, for the simple reason I forgot to go to the store and I have kids to feed. But have I chosen that? The answer is unequivocally no. I do not want to eat eggs and toast and bacon for dinner. I just don't want to do it, man. I can't do it. I need to have some substance in my stomach before I go to bed.
I agree. You know, Bowden over there, he does a podcast. What breakfast foods for dinner? Breakfast foods for dinner. Know,
foods to make you sleep.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Extra turkey.
Now I need to have myself something that, you know what? Even whenever you think of flapjacks or pancakes or whatever. I don't want to think about that sitting in my stomach whenever I'm ready to go to sleep. I don't. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Because then what are you going to eat the next morning?
Spaghetti? I don't know. I would be so off. I would have no idea. You know what, Dave? That is absolutely the case. That's crazy talk.
No, I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
and bacon is. I will disagree with bacon though, because it is a universal food. It's much like O positive blood. You can put it. It can go anywhere. All right. I'll disagree with bacon, but eggs, hash browns, pancakes, waffles. No bloody way they should be eaten for dinner ever.
No,
ever.
No, I agree.
You can put some steak in there, but no.
No.
Other than that, steak is fine, but no eggs. I had a couple of pictures of these staircases I was trying to find. I was going to send it to you on the Skype, if you were interested.
They better not be nudes of you.
No, it's not.
That's the thing is whenever
people.
whenever Bryan says, "You want me to send you pictures?" always be very, very cautious because for the most part, it's just nothing but full frontal.
Yes, it is.
It's terrible.
It's Snapchat.
Terrible.
It's Snapchat. That's right. Yeah, he has bunny ears and he's rocking it out.
That doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me.
You gotta, I gotta keep up with my 13-year-olds. Oh,
yes.
You know what? I remember when my daughter asked me to go on Snapchat. I was on there for like 2 weeks. I'm like, what the hell is this? This is way before, I think it was like 6-8 months into this show, and she's, oh, everybody's doing it, Dad. And I'm like, I tried it like twice, and I was like, yeah, this sucks.
This is not for me.
This completely sucks. So not doing this.
I agree.
It's strange stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but I think because we're on the YouTube side right now, correct? The YouTube listeners.
Yeah.
What number are we up to now?
Right now we're at 140. 140.
We need 210, Dave. We need 210.
213 is the new record, by the way.
Oh, 213. I thought it was 209. Okay.
Well,
okay. Who set that record, by the way?
Who set that record? Grant Cameron, just last week.
Oh,
213. And we broke 200 just a couple days before with Ronald Moorhead.
Yeah. Oh, right. Well, Ronald Moorhead, he's a great guy. You know, he's a great guy. I've done some things with him before. Yeah, he's a good guy. But you know, I feel bad because who is the person that you've had on your program the most, Dave? Who is your the person that you've had as the record breaker for the most appearances?
Oh goodness, probably either R. Keith Andrews or. I would have put Butch Witkowski in there, but Butch, of course, having his heart attack,
he got sick.
He missed like 7 episodes, and I would say R. Keith Andrews is probably the record holder.
Okay, yeah. See, again, your listeners are by far the most loyal listeners out there, and that's the reason why I love this show so much. And that's just not blowing smoke. And they're also the most intelligent ones out there. I say this all the time because it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
We can come on this program without anything planned whatsoever, and we can have an amazing show just because of the feedback from these folks.
Hold on, boys. Here we go. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I'm Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. What a pleasure it is to be live with all of you tonight. Thank you for tuning us in. We welcome back everyone, and we want to remind you that you can listen to all of our archives for free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, if you didn't know that already. Yeah, we could rock out to Bumblefoot, read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, and much, much more. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on with the Crypto Guru as it's Guru time here on Spaced Out Radio. Ronald Murphy, you can find all of his books on Amazon, another great researcher that we have on. He also hosts a multitude of podcasts. We can't count that high how many podcasts he has. Bryan Bowden is here as well. Gentlemen, we're going to start off with a question from Michael, and I wasn't sure if I was going to ask this one because Michael was preaching his undying love and affection for Cyndi Lauper in the chat room. And that's paranormal at its best right there. Anyways, I think he's probably a Coldplay fan too. But he is asking point blank, okay, about cryptids, but there's a lot of people out there who are testing out psychedelics for contact with extraterrestrials. Do either of you know, and I'll leave this open to either one of you, if psychedelics also help in communication with cryptid creatures?
I would not recommend it in general at all. I understand psychedelics are used most likely and most of the time by the spiritual leader of most indigenous cultures, and it was used to free your consciousness so that you can connect vibrate on a higher plane, and tap into that resource that we're all looking for. But you're talking about using psychedelics to go look at a Bigfoot or a Dogman. I don't think that would work. I don't think you'd be in your right frame of mind to be in there.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Whenever we talk about the shaman, especially in traditional cultures, that almost always revolves around some use of a psychedelic, whether it's a mushroom or a peyote or something along those lines, some sort of, poison that you're ingesting in your body to give you some sort of psychedelic effect. The idea is, as Bryan had said so eloquently, that they are communing with the other world. And sometimes whenever they communicate with this other world, it does have to involve, these other strange creatures. And we know for a fact that Vikings used psychedelic mushrooms before they went into battle. So when we talk about the berserker, whenever they dressed up in the skins of a bear, they legitimately thought that they were endowed with the power of the bear. Now, in my book that I wrote on Dogman, Tracking the Werewolf Through History, I did point out that it's very possible that some of the very earliest encounters with what we would call a werewolf, going back to as far back as 700 AD, may have involved a group of people being attacked by wolf skin wearing humans that through the use of psychedelic drugs legitimately believed that they were indeed wolf men and preyed upon these people. That is one of my summations when we talk about the idea of a Jungian collective unconscious, something so impacted our psyche that it became a part of our folklore traditions. I think that it probably can happen, but I agree with Bryan. It should not happen, not in today's day and age, because we have no idea what we're dealing with here.
Well, there are people out there who are testing it out right now in regards to communication with extraterrestrials. I know Grant Cameron has been trying that study lately. Others have as well. Ayahuasca seems to be very, very powerful in the ET or ultra-terrestrial being type. I'm just too chicken to try it. I don't even smoke pot.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Of all the things, and I know what Grant's been doing is, I think he's microdosing, which is actually now being used on psychological levels to help heal people mentally. I think if it's a controlled small or microdose, or something along the lines more so of, I'm going to use the term DMT, it lasts for fewer minutes, but it's more purposeful, and maybe that would actually help. Again, what you're doing is you're freeing your consciousness, and what is really keeping all of us uptight and stressed out and worried and whatever. You're breaking free of that so that you can actually start to get in touch with your conscious, and that's where the connection's coming from. So if you're talking about it as using it as a conduit to get your consciousness in line, I would say possible. No problem. Definitely with extraterrestrials, I think it works even better. But when you're talking cryptids, you know what? I'd rather meet a Bigfoot any day of the week than a dogman. I would not want to be taking any type of medicine while confronted with this type of apex predator that's going to kill you. There's another thing. You're a fan. I don't know if anybody's watched Hellier. It's called the God Helmet. And basically what it does is it kind of gives you that same type of ability, but they're using electromagnetic stimulus in your brain to focus your brain into a euphoric or a state of higher vibration, like a religious experience. And when you're in that zone, you are more in touch with other regions, other entities, other possibilities than not. And that's a nice way of doing it, kind of like getting that drug type of effect, but without being on drugs.
That's right.
Taking them. Just be careful.
Yeah,
if you're going to do this, just be careful. That's the main point.
Yeah. One thing that I do have to state before we move on to the next subject is, as a high school journalist in 1985, I actually did a review of Cyndi Lauper's She's So Unusual, and I did find it to be a very remarkable album. And I will tell you this, that as far as the 1980s goes, one of the greatest punk songs is indeed Money Changes Everything off of Cyndi Lauper's She's So Unusual. So I will actually defend the gentleman that says about this. I will go to bat for him. I think that she is an amazing talent, and I think that we're just looking at the she-bop and the stuff, but we really have to look at some of her back catalog and some of the things that she's really archived. So if anybody is doubting Cyndi Lauper, I tell you to go back and give it a re-listen.
I'm more Joan Jett and Lita Ford, man.
Oh my God! I used to work with a woman that looked exactly like Lita Ford.
Yeah.
Right. But don't you think that Joan Jett and Lita Ford is manufactured punk.
No
Or
way,
not
Joan
manufactured
Jett.
rock.
Not Joan Jett. Your beard is too tight. Your beard is too tight.
Look. I'm just putting it out there. I'm just saying. I love rock and roll. I do believe was written by the same person that wrote music for the Archies. So I mean, she definitely is cherry picking who's writing some of her music. But I'm not saying that she's not a talented person, because she most certainly is, and she's made an indelible mark on the rock music front, especially for women. But I'm just saying that Cyndi Lauper has done just as much. And I will tell you, Lita Ford is still looking hot at this age too.
Yes,
if anybody, yes, it's amazing, absolutely amazing.
Well, I can tell you this: my '80s crush. And I'm not going to lie, I still have a crush on her today because she's still gorgeous, is Susanna Hoffs, the lead singer of the Bangles.
My goodness gracious.
Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, I remember as a teenager watching this. I as far as new people that I have a crush on, I was watching television the other day, and there's this K-pop band out, the band from Korea called BTS. And you know what? I was about ready to ask one of the singers on there to be my wife until I found out that they were all men. That's a terrible thing to have happen to you nowadays.
Always check the Adam's apple.
Anyways, gentlemen, let's get this back on track here, as we got to talk monsters and not crushes in music, because Susanna Hoffs.
Yes.
Oh
yes, for Walking Like an Egyptian. Oh yes. But monsters aside, there's a lot of ghost stories that come up around this time of year. All right, because everybody wants to share a ghost story come Halloween. And Bryan, you have investigated a lot of ghost stories over the years. Is there one that sticks out with you that's just off the charts?
Well, I have one going on right now, Dave, actually. It's in my apartment. I was doing a presentation a couple of weeks ago at a lodge, and we were talking about remote viewing. And in the lodge, it happens to be haunted. I kept catching on the corner of my eye something standing there. There was only 4 of us in this one area, nobody else in the place. And one of the guys that's in the lodge, he's a really big guy, about 6'7", big boy, 400 pounds, and doesn't take any buff from anybody. He's pretty much a tough guy, but he will not go in that basement alone. But after that event, I got home pretty late. My wife woke up the next night because she heard chatter outside. She thought it was our kids. And she heard 2 women talking. And I'm like, okay, and she told me this privately the next day. Said, I heard 2 women talking. I thought it was the girls. It wasn't the girls. The day following that little incident, we went out. I took my wife out with my youngest. We had to get, the sneakers or whatever. And my oldest daughter calls up and asks for Mom. She's in the apartment. She's standing and talking to a friend on a cell phone. And she hears something fall in our bedroom. So I'm not in a big apartment, but she goes in the apartment and there's nothing there. Her friend hears it on the phone too. She comes back out, she lowers the TV, and in the corner just opposite her, where all this noise has been coming from, she hears someone talking and someone calling her name. So I started to investigate, and I started to ask a couple people that I know that are qualified psychics. Is this something I need to worry about? What have you? Fast forward a week later, I'm leaving a recorder on for a full week. Every time we leave in the middle of the night, I'll just leave a recorder that is activated by sound. So trying to catch something, I get nothing. My youngest daughter, a week later, we come back. She hurts herself, trying to get into the back seat of the car. And she's complaining and crabbing. She's tired. She comes upstairs, and I'm standing closest to the corner where all this noise was coming from. And my hand to God, Dave, my mother-in-law's been dead for almost 5 years now. I heard my mother-in-law's voice say, "What's the matter, poo-poo?" Just exactly like she would say it. And my eyes widened. I ran around the table. I ran into the kitchen as my wife's coming up, like, do not come out. I just heard your mom's voice. And it's been going on lately in my apartment itself. It's very interesting. I don't know why they're coming back, but a couple of the psychics that we deal with, say that must be something going on, because there seems to be a thinning of the veil, and this is happening globally. More and more reports now of people having interactions or noises or events taking place just like this. But this is taking place where I'm sitting right now is maybe 10 feet away from me. And I every once in a while I'll catch it. But as a seasoned investigator, that's pretty intense. It's not one of those residuals where it's playing the same thing over and over again. This was purposeful. My daughter was hurt, and my mother-in-law said, "What's wrong, Poo-Poo?" That's exactly what she would say. I never heard anybody else say that same type of line before. So that is what's going on recently. I can only imagine come Halloween, when the veil is the thinnest, what's going to be taking place. Given all the events that's taking place around the world, between the COVID and people dying, the intensity of everything, it's going to get very interesting. I'd love to hear the reports when they come out.
Guru. Guru.
I'm here.
All right.
I'm here.
With the paranormal, all right, we hear a lot about poltergeist activity, things moving around, people trying to, have a nice living place in their home, and all of a sudden doors are slamming, cupboards are slamming, glasses are being thrown across the tables. What's your freakiest poltergeist story that you have researched?
It's interesting because Bryan always has these stories that happen to him, and that is the same way with me as well too. Whenever you talk about researching things, it's okay because you're going into somebody's place. Now, one of the places I researched is in a small town in Blairsville. It's a historic town, part of the Underground Railroad and everything. And I investigated a poltergeist activity there. Things were said to be moving around. I never heard anything, never saw anything, but I documented some of the cases. And it's been noticed to be going on there for about 150 years. There was something going on in this particular house. But again, all anecdotal, never saw anything on my own. And it doesn't really make an impact until you are in it. It's easy to read things, or it's easy to investigate. And even though we investigate and we hear people telling very sober tells and very clear, lucid tells, it doesn't make the same impact unless it's part of what's going on. Now, I recently became a grandfather, and my daughter was complaining that whenever she had her baby speaker on, the baby monitor, that she could hear things moving around in her baby's room, and even sometimes hearing voices. And these are strange things. I've had baby monitors. I know that sometimes they can pick up interferences from anything from radios to, CBs and things like that, because people still use that kind of stuff. But just the other day, she was listening to this, and she heard some things that sounded like a whisper on there, and then she heard a bang, and she ran upstairs, and a toy that was in my granddaughter's crib was now across the floor. And mind you, my granddaughter is only 5 months old, so she's not capable of doing anything like this. Whenever I investigate poltergeist activities, almost invariably, there is a young girl involved. And I have to point out that my daughter, even though she had a baby, she's still just 16 years old. I mean, I read all the books and everything like that, and try to keep her, on the straight and narrow, but if these don't work. But almost invariably, whenever you hear these kind of tells, you're dealing with a very young girl that is going through some sort of stress and trauma, and it seems to be, emanating from her. That may not necessarily be the case in every kind of experience, but according to my research, I have found out that kind of stuff is happening. But yeah, these are interesting phenomenon, and it is strange that I am an investigator and Bryan's an investigator, and we have this kind of stuff happening to us. But again, that might be one of the reasons why we are. Have chosen this as our vocation, is simply because we have been open to this kind of stuff, our whole lives, and things are drawn to that, getting back full circle to where we started out. But it does seem kind of odd that we're having these kind of experiences that we've been investigating.
Well, I'm watching the chat room here, and I see the conversation kind of switching to owls. A lot of people believe that owls are some kind of messenger for things that are strange and weird, whether it's paranormal, whether it's extraterrestrial. Bryan, I want to get your comment on this.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting. So 2 years ago, we did this is with the owls. We did a CE5 up in Pine Bush, and great event for the fair. It was late. I was tired. When we were at the CE5, we had about 100 people there. I'm going through this kind of like meditation to kind of get them centered and saying, look, we're going to ask for an interaction with some kind of alien race. And I've been in the woods many, many times. I just started hearing hooting and hollering, as if it sounded like kids drinking in the baseball field, over the, between us. And I was about to turn to my buddy and say, hey, you hear the hoot and hollering, when someone goes, hey, you hear the owl. And then the minute he says owl, a craft appears above our heads. It's a big white dome, like LED white. You can see a hexagonal type of a housing holding it in place. It's a darker craft. You can see where the stars in the regular sky is, and this craft is here. I, as a research investigator, am blown away. So is everybody else. Everybody's oohing and ahhing. We're signaling it back and forth. Now, something that always comes into my mind with a lot of abduction cases, and if you talk to Whitley Strieber, if you talk to the cases involved in the Alaska thing, which they used for the fourth kind, owls play a key part in a lot of abductions and a lot of aliens being present. People describe them owl-like. And if you look at some of the renderings that people have given to some of the investigators, I mean, Grant probably has a ton of them, Mary Rodwell. If you look at some of these beings, it's very owl-esque. So I think there is a connection there.
But the owls that a lot of people are seeing are just not owls that you would see perched in a tree. All right? They're seeing, at times, as this goes on, these owls can be 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, 6, 7 feet tall.
But that's my point. My point is, you're getting people that are. We had someone they've been abducted, their kids have been abducted, so on and so forth, and they mentioned she thought she woke up kind of hazy, like she heard something that startled her. She looked at the window and she said there was an owl staring at her in through the window. And she said there was something weird about it. It was the biggest owl she's ever seen. Now, some owls can get pretty big, okay? But that whole case that's why I'm saying, a lot of these grays, when they come in to do the labor work to pick up the suspect or the person you're going to be abducting at the time, if your brain is going to naturally try to make sense of what you're seeing. It's like what we do. I think it's called, I forgot the actual name of it. But when you look at clouds, you say, oh, that looks like a lion. Your brain will automatically trigger you to what you're comfortable with, what things look like. When you're seeing a gray alien, and you've seen one, Dave, if you're not prepared for that type of experience, you're going to go, no, that's an owl. Because the thought of an extraterrestrial, an alien being outside your door or standing next to your bed, it's 3 feet tall, you could have a heart attack at that point. So I think that's what's taking place in a lot of these things. I'm not saying it's all the time, but I pay huge note when I start hearing owls chiming in, big time, because
yeah.
Ron,
we got a minute. I want to get your opinion on this.
Well, if you look at Celtic cultures, we're going back into prehistory. The owl was always seen as an intermediary between this world and the next world. And what is curious about the owl in the Celtic culture is that they were also the abductor of children. It's getting back to what Bryan said. See, when we start connecting the dots, this all kind of makes sense. If you would go back to as far back as the Lilith mythology of the Babylonian era, we see that her attribute is the owl as well. And Lilith as well was also the abductor of children. So as we connect the dots, we see that the owl is indeed responsible or associated with people being taken. Again, this is different cultures from around the world, different time periods, but again and again, we have the figure of the owl as something that will come into your house and take you away. Again, this is very fascinating from not only a cultural perspective and a psychological perspective, but from a paranormal point of view as well too. What's going on, And I think that what Bryan is saying is making some sense. That this has been going on for a long time, and we're just trying to put it together as best as we can.
Gentlemen, we're going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to break here at the top of the hour. The Crypto Guru continues on Spaced Out Radio right after this. All right, boys. Keep it clean.
Sir.
I got to run.
All right.
How you feeling, Guru?
You know what? You go until 2:30, correct?
We got 30 more minutes, yeah. You can do it.
I can do.
right.
I can do 30 more minutes.
You guys
Yep.
chat away about something paranormal. I'll be right back.
Something I remember when I was in grade school. I remember reading, or I don't know if they read it to me or whatever the book was, but basically the premise was it was a book, and it was about the wise old owl and how he would visit you at night, and he would give you all this information and knowledge. And I remember hearing this saying as well in a couple other fables and fairy tales, and I can't put two and two together. I don't have that. It's not one of those things that's right in the back of my brain. But can you imagine that this story that they're telling you is about a gray or an alien, giving an impression that I'm just an owl and I'm the wise owl, and literally downloading people, years ago. That's
it makes perfect sense.
It's crazy stuff.
Yeah, if you look at the scientific name for owl, it's Strix, Strix, and the Strix part of the Roman cosmology was this kind of ferocious demon that would come upon and prey upon children. Again, always associated with something to happen with children.
Right.
And then when we think about, fairies like to abduct children as well, too. Again, there's something very unnerving about something that people identify with an owl. Large eyes, The other reason about owls, too, is the way their wings are constructed is they can fly in silence. They don't make any sound whenever they flap their wings. So this is one of those things that come into your house without making a sound, and you wake up in the morning and your child is gone. As we connect the dots, Bryan, especially as we connect the dots around the world, it's seeming like different cultures across time and space is seeing the same thing, and we really just simply don't know what to do with it.
Right, and like I said before, it's pareidolia, I think it is. That's the word, where you kind of make something out of nothing. A lot of these UFO photos and Bigfoot, and I've seen tons of them. And what really, and I don't do this to hurt anybody's feelings, but when you say it's pareidolia, they get so upset and they get on the defensive. No, it was there. I'm like, look, I'm just telling you my own impression of it. I wasn't there. I didn't shoot it and what have you. And I honestly believe that people believe what they believe. So I'm not going to deny that. But if you give me a photograph and I could break it up and I can, use some programs that I have, I really can start analyzing whether it was created or not. But in general, it's like, I used to love those days where like, oh, look, that looks like the Starship Enterprise.
Right, absolutely. Yeah,
but
I think,
owls are just a weird animal.
Yeah,
it's strange.
Yeah, whenever you look at things like pareidolia, whenever you're talking about these sticks in the woods seem to make kind of like a face, and that stump looks a little bit like of a body. I'm going to take it a step further, and I would say that what is happening, if this is indeed a true abduction scenario, that what your mind is doing is nothing more than an act of self-preservation.
Exactly.
Is that you do not want to believe that this is going on, so your mind will go to the most obvious thing that it could possibly be, and the idea of an owl coming through, because it's the only thing that makes logical sense to you. You stated it beautifully whenever you were talking to Dave. That's absolutely
Right.
what's going on.
Yeah. It's funny because one of my buddies is a big bird guy. He's a bird watcher, and we were up in Connecticut, and he played. He has this really cool little like a boom box. He played an owl sound, a call, and an owl flew down to it. He tracked an owl. I've been in that summer camp for years, decades. Never once heard a freaking owl. So, in general, when I hear owls now, I definitely perk up and I look around and I get the spidey senses going, for the most part, because here's something one of the investigations I told you about it where we lost some time there. Okay, we had a UFO sighting, we lost time. And we've always decided that if we're going to regress, we'll do it together. But after talking to the guy we talked to, Derek Tyler, on our show, I talked to him privately. I showed him the video. He goes, "You were being downloaded." I said, "Do you think I should get regressed?" He goes, "Do you sleep well at night?" I said, "Yeah." "No nightmares?" "Yeah." "Don't get regressed." So
right.
That's the whole thing. If you have the fortitude where you're not freaking out and you're not having night terrors, it's better to not regress yourself, and your body, right? It's self-preservation. They will find a way to say, no, it's freaking owl, and that's what it was.
That's right. But like I said, it is so strange. What even in like the vampiric legends, if we would go back to Lilith, instead of the bat that is associated with vampires now, originally it was indeed the owl. That was the creature of the night. That is the thing that haunts dark desert places, and even in the Bible, and I'm trying to remember what chapter it is in the Old Testament, or what book it is in the Old Testament, but it talks about the wastelands being haunted by the owl, by the Strix.
Yep.
All right, guys, we got about 20 seconds. Thank you so much to Mr. D.B. Cooper and Human Carl, Vinny, and Michael Boyle for the Super Chats tonight. Really do appreciate the love and support everyone gives us, especially with the thumbs up, the thumbs down, sharing this show. You guys are awesome. Don't forget, you can do a little shopping at the SOR Vault. New gear coming soon.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. I'm Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio. Remember, you can check out all of our archives for free. All you need to do is go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Namori Vagant. Namori Vagant is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we introduce the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, and Bryan Bowden coming in, talking all things weird, strange, and cryptid as the crypto guru time continues right now. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Hey, this was actually the medicine that I needed. I've been feeling a lot better. I think it's all that positive energy coming from that SOR room. I really think that's what's going on.
Well, we just got another thumbs up from Michael because you loved Cyndi Lauper. And
no, good. See, that's good. That's good. I appreciate that.
No worries, gentlemen. No worries. We're kind of hopping all over the place tonight when it comes to the weird and strange because it is Halloween and, there's a lot of people who talk about conjuring things up, seances, Ouija boards, trying to go on a ghost tour, walking around cemeteries. Gentlemen, if you had one piece of advice, and Bryan, we'll start with you on this one, on people who may not be familiar with the paranormal but want to do something that's a little spooky, what should they stay away from doing?
Well, I'm not a I'm not a big fan of Ouija boards personally. I think you're opening up a doorway to things that you do not know, and you got to understand that when you get something that's dark, they know on the other side almost everything about you, so they will prey on your emotions. Oh, it's my father. Oh, it's my grandfather. They know everything. You don't have to say a word. They know what's going on. So you may unleash something into your house or your home, or take something home with you from the place you were at, and your life's going to be a living hell. So I'd stay away from Ouija boards. And also, something I recommend to everybody, if you're going to go to these haunted houses, these attractions, if they're still open, during the COVID stuff, I highly recommend that before you go in there, you use some sage. And if you sage yourself, sage your family. If you can't use sage, I desperately go in and get salt. It doesn't matter what kind of salt it is. Sprinkle a little in your pockets and just protect yourself before you go in there. Again, the time during these times, Halloween, the veil is thinner. The dead are ready, willing, and able to come through that veil on a positive and a negative type of format. You just got to be careful.
How about you, Guru?
And that's what I was going to say. Not only the dead, not only deceased human beings, but also, other forces that are inhuman as well can come through that as well, too. That's the thing that we really have to be concerned about. Look, I love the aesthetics of a Ouija board. Bryan and I right now are in the process of trying to design what would be called communication boards.
Yep.
But it's a very difficult thing to do because I want to have that as part of my arsenal in communication and opening up doorways to the other world. But the way it is set up right now, it is just not a safe practice to do. I know there has to be a way out there to formulate that we would be able to be, a little bit more focused on how we contact the proverbial other side, but it's just something that we have not perfected yet. But I would like to have that out there. But I would say that the idea of the Ouija board is one of those things where you are dealing with forces that you simply cannot comprehend. Also, people are watching these ghost hunting shows on television, and one of the big things is this aggressive confrontation with the other side. And I say in no way should you ever provoke anything that you don't know what you're talking about either, because if you don't know what you are provoking, it might not be the spirit of a deceased person. It might be some sort of, demonic force that really will like to take you to task for what you're doing.
That is very true. And, the one thing that a lot of people don't understand, they want that spookiness factor. They want to get scared. They want to conjure something up. It doesn't matter how. They just want the thrill. They may not be paranormal enthusiasts, but come this time of year, they want to take it up to that next level. And the problem is a lot of people don't know the dangers, Guru, about actually doing this.
And see, Dave, that's a show in and of itself, and that's something that we are going to have to revisit. What I have found out in my years of research is 90% of all ghostly encounters are not scary. They're basically a positive type of a thing. They might be a little bewildering, but they're not. There's no fear factor in there. You only get fear involved whenever you're dealing with something that is not the soul of a human being. I truly believe that. I think the people that actually have, the traditional hauntings are they feel changed. They feel relieved to know that life goes on after death. It's this kind of cathartic experience. But those people that want to have these terrifying encounters, you're dealing with something far beyond your comprehension in those kind of encounters.
And something you got to point out, I just wanted to point out, because it's a prayer that I've said numerous times, and some other people have said, the Holy Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. At the end, you're asking Holy Michael to thrust into hell Satan and all evil spirits that prowl the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Okay? Mm-hmm. Satan's just one. They know that there's more of these entities that are out there that are evil, and negative. And when you get people in these, I used to love going out to these scare houses. You know, we have a whole forest up by me, and it's the whole thing is like a gigantic scare house. That energy that goes there, these beings are attracted to. It becomes a portal almost. And you'll be surprised that a lot of people come away from that. They have a good time, but there's a lot of negative things that take place in those places.
Right. Yeah, one of the things that Bryan and I had worked on one of our books, like I said, whenever he finally gets this out, is we've talked about portals of natural portals and portals of intention. Whenever you yourself can intend for these kind of portals to open. So you're actually giving permission for something to come through. Right. And that's actually what a Ouija board does. You're giving something that you have no idea what you're talking about permission to come through and not only communicate with you, but enter your dimension as well.
Yeah, that's the scary thing. And a lot of people do that at this time of year without even knowing. Bryan, have you...
Yep.
Sorry, Guru. Well, just hold on one second.
No, I was just saying, yeah. Yep.
Go ahead.
No, I would agree with you. I was just agreeing. Oh, absolutely. That's right.
You know, I mean, here's the big thing. I mean, spirit attachments can make people sick. They can turn, you know, if you're... A lot of people complain about having this black cloud over them. I mean, spirit attachment, Bryan, is nothing to be joking over.
Not at all. There was I was an investigator, and they're up in upstate New York, and they went to some place in Pennsylvania, the Amish country, Gettysburg. They went to Gettysburg. They went in a gift shop. They bought a pair of earrings that they thought were cool, and they got an attachment, literally out of nowhere. And they literally they had to do, you know, she went to a priest, and she got the blessing. They did saging. They did a couple other ceremonies with other spiritual leaders in there. There's a Native American person, and he practices and helps to remove demonic problems or black curses. These things are everywhere. I always tell people too, like when you're innocently walking in the woods, you don't know what's in the woods. It's not just the bears and the mountain lions and all the other stuff. There are beings and entities that are in the woods that are also can be very negative, and you can bring them home with you. So I think the best way to combat that is get used to, you know, you can keep Florida water on you and spritz yourself down with some Florida water. You can buy it. It's literally used in these type of voodoo and hoodoo and religious ceremonies even in you know, Catholicism. There's salt you can carry with you. Salt is beautiful. It's natural. It's a natural protectant. And just keep them with you. Enjoy it. Have a great time. But, you know, when it comes protecting yourself, you should protect yourself first. Be it a cross, be it some kind of religious symbol or whatever it is that you believe in. Just ask for protection before you go into that place, and then ask for it when you come home. You know, one of the things I do on an investigation is we sage our equipment before we go, and we say all these prayers. We sage after it's over, and when I get home, the first thing I do, take off everything, throw it into a plastic bag, and I tie it up, and I shower. And the reason why I shower is I want a wash of water is a cleanser, and it's a natural protection. And you just clean your body of anything negative that you may have brought home that you didn't cover with anything else. Just protect yourself. There's nothing wrong with that.
And that's a big thing. That's a big thing. Protect yourself. You know, we only have 11 minutes left. Ron, when we look at Halloween and the spookiness factor that kind of is something that we're all searching for, all right, what story stands out for you, whether in the cryptid world, the folklore world, the paranormal world, UFOs? What story really stands out for you as something that is, I don't want to use the word disturbing, but something that's just a little off balance from what we're used to?
Right. I think that's a great question, and it's going to go back again to the Ouija board. I spoke to a young girl several years ago that decided on a Halloween to take a Ouija board to a cemetery and communicate. She talked about seeing full-body apparitions appearing in the periphery of where they were at. And she went home, and she was in bed, and everything on her countertop exploded. Her mousse, her perfume, everything exploded. It comes back again to the idea of wanting to inject fear into your life. And these things feed upon fear. If we go back to the very, very first Halloween, the very first practices of the Halloween by Celtic cultures, we're talking about a time whenever it was a welcoming of your dead ancestors to come back, so much so that you would actually put a candle out or open up a window to allow your ancestors in. This was a time of visitations. They were on the other side. They can give you information about things that might be happening in the upcoming year. The fear was the unknown. The fear was who might not live through the winter. That was the fear. The fear was are we going to have enough food to eat? Is it going to be a bad season? But what we're doing now is we see this as a unique time of terror, and that's never the way that it was intended. This was seen as almost a beautiful time, if you think about it. This is a time whenever we're saying goodbye to one way of life. We're going to go into a confinement for 3 months until, summertime, or until spring comes again, until we see sunlight again. But now, we are so infatuated with fear, and that is what has now been injected into the season. And whenever you have fear, you will have beings that thrive on fear, and nothing good wants fear in their lives. Only the negative things want fear.
Very true. How about for you, Bryan?
I just do everything in my power to protect myself and my family when we deal with these things. The problem you have is there's a lot of people that don't understand and comprehend that these things do exist. There's negative things that will attach to you no matter where you're going. And it's the greatest way of being, walking around blind, blind to the reality of what the world exists. So I always take the extra step. I say an extra couple of prayers. Whether my kids hear it or my wife hears it, I don't care. I'm always projecting this positive vibe out there. And something that I highly suggest is, go get some holy water, even if you're not of faith, and put in a spritz bottle. Keep your holy water actually in a refrigerator. It will go bad. Talk about mold or whatever. But if you ever have a negative time or a bad situation taking place or a bad day, I promise you, spray a little holy water around the area, things will start changing. These are the things we need to do in this time where we are right now, just to protect ourselves. Have fun, go out, have a great time, but always remember to protect yourself.
That is probably the biggest thing that we need to learn. Okay, so in the cryptid world, how do you know if you're being tracked by a dogman or a Bigfoot there, Bryan?
I had somebody who was a runner. They were running through the woods. They kept hearing things, pacing with them. And Bigfoot isn't really a tracker type of, from my experience, they don't really track. They watch you. They pay attention. Dogmen is the ones that are tracking you. You'll start hearing sticks breaking. You get this, they ooze this type of, I'm going to call it infrasound or something. It's just unnerving. You're being watched. And your best bet at that point is to go, like they say, go to the light. Get to an area that's more well lit. They're opportunists. They will, if you have one in front of you, you can bet your bottom dollar there's another one sneaking back behind you. They work in pairs, and they're opportunists. If you're being tracked by one of them, it's not for anything good. That's just my personal take from past experience and interviews and individuals who've had encounters.
Why are they traveling in pairs?
For some reason, it's look at the wolf mentality. They always, wolves and they travel in packs. It is a pack. And most of the ones that are really aggressive are the younger ones, the young Turks. They got something to prove. And you know what? You come up against something who's 8 feet tall and looks like a werewolf. We're just prey at that point. I've seen some people talking about, shooting at them. Bad idea. Even Butch Witowski will tell you, bad idea. You can have things there. It's better to have a long blade because when they fear that more than a gun because they know that will slice them open versus, putting a bullet in them. I don't hunt personally, but I know people that have hunted moose. They've shot it, dead on, and the flesh and the skin is so thick that it doesn't even penetrate. What you're doing is pissing that thing off. And there's a great story. Some guy shot at one. He drove 400 miles home. They tracked him back to his home 400 miles and wrecked him. They just destroyed the house, almost killed him. He it was a nightmare situation. So they just track you. It's what they do. It's like, how does a dog track?
Unbelievable. Have you heard of these cases too, Ron?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I've I think that I did have an occasion where I did feel like I was being tracked by something. And I always rely on simple biological evolution, that if there is something inside of you telling you that instinctually that you need to take off, you need to take off. We don't think much about our senses. We're humans. We rely on technology. But if our nose is telling us something, or if our ears are alerting us to something out there, or, a taste in the air, I think biologically as a species, we understand whenever there is something out in the woods to fear. And that very basic animal intuition that still lies dormant within us will be triggered in certain situations, especially in situations involving these types of cryptids. And whenever that happens, always pay attention. Get out of there as quickly as you can, because there is something internally within you telling you that this is something that you cannot deal with, and it's time to get out.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That is very interesting, because I know there's one case in my area where I live of a couple of First Nations elders going back just a few years ago. They were out hunting for a bear, and they were brothers, and one of the brothers raises his rifle, sees what he thought was a bear standing on hind legs, and saw two of them as he put up his rifle for a scope. And then when he got a good view at both of them, realizing that they were dog-like creatures, he put his rifle down and looked at his brother and said, "We got to go, and we got to go fast."
Yep. I'm telling you, these things do not play. Dave, I never wanted to believe these things exist. I thought, oh, this is fantasy. Someone's making this up. They exist. I've seen one. I was no more than 25 yards from something that was sitting there. And it didn't do anything. It wasn't hostile. But then it disappeared, and then the chicken flesh comes up, and your spidey sense kick in, and it's like, it's time to go. And if the First Nations people are telling you these stories, there's a reason for it.
That's right.
Yeah, this isn't something you go out and look for.
Yeah. And I've interviewed many people, by many, definitely under 12 people, but probably about 8 people that have claimed to actually fired upon a cryptid, whether it's a Bigfoot or a Dogman. And, they claim that the weapon has no effect. But what I truly think is going on is you're so overcome with fear that you're just simply not making a good shot. And that's the reason why I don't think that going out in the woods and thinking, oh, I have a weapon and I'm impervious to this kind of stuff. I think that when we're talking about being overcome with a very, very primal fear, that you're not going to be thinking in your right mind, and you might be a dead-on shot, but under those kinds of situations, you're going to be shooting a stray because you have no idea what you're talking about. Again, don't rely on technology. Don't rely on firepower. If you feel threatened, simply get out of there. That is your body telling you that you're now prey, and it's time to get out of there. It's time to flee. We all have that flight or fight response in us, and of all the encounters that I've ever had, either personally or or through interviewing people, the first response is never to fight. It's always to get the heck out of there.
Very true. Gentlemen, we only got about 25 seconds left with you tonight. Another show that has flown on by. And Guru, I know you said you were only coming for an hour, but, you battled through your sickness to do the entire show. Bryan Bowden, thanks for joining us as well. And joining us, we really appreciate both of you guys coming on in. You can find both of their books, as I got a ton of books on Amazon. Just check them on out. We really, really appreciate these two gentlemen coming in for a few Halloween stories as we grow closer to the big day where once used to be trick-or-treating, now is, well, we don't know. Coming up next, we have the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Day. More Spaced Out Radio right around the corner.
Nice.
Good job, gentlemen. Let's give you a few claps here.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and I'm glad that I did get through this. I was anxious. Bryan, thank you so much for being there. I was able to come on to this only knowing that Bryan was going to be there, because I didn't think that my voice was going to last, and I didn't think that I was going to last. I'm very beat. My voice is starting to go a little bit, but I think it was a really good show, guys. I really do, and I hope the fans think it as well too.
I can't thank you enough. I always am honored when you ask me to come on. I appreciate all you do, Dave. Matter of fact, I didn't say it and I mentioned, but at that CE5 that I was doing, I listed at the end the people that you should be watching and following and paying attention to. Grant was on there, Mary Rodwell. And I said, Dave Scott, Spaced Out Radio.
Nice.
You were up there. Your big beard and your pretty promo picture, because I said, this is where you're going to get the real information, real guests, and something you really need to pay attention to. And I mean it. It's not just, you have got a great crew. You got great fans, in your chat and throughout. It's a wonderful experience.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. And that's what we try and do here on a nightly basis. And, honestly, I say it all the time. Our audience, they keep me on the ball. They're very brilliant. They are.
Yes, they are.
They are way smarter than I could ever be. And, I just happen to have a voice. And the odd time I ask a good question. So, but, I mean, they are the best. And, God damn, I'm lucky. I'm blessed and I'm lucky.
You are. You're very lucky, my friend.
Yeah.
I mean, you do it better than I've listened to a lot of stuff, Dave, and you are really 100% professional, perfect, fun, entertaining. You do it all.
Yes.
And it's no smoke. It's the truth. And everybody that's there in that chat room, I mean, such great questions, the comments, the fun. That's what you want when you're doing stuff like this. You want that feedback instantaneously. And I always try to monitor the chat, because if I can answer a question, I'm going to answer a question,
Yeah.
And that's how it's just a good time. It's not my fault you listen to Guns N' Roses, but you know what?
Greatest band ever. Greatest band ever. Hey, Guru, quickly before I let you guys go here, if you go on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio, our good listener of this show, Marty, who's also a veteran, every night he puts a clown up because he knows I hate clowns, but he puts a clown up. But he has a special clown up for you every time you come on this show, and it's a beautiful female clown holding a balloon that says, "I love dairy."
No,
Yes.
no, I gotta see this.
So,
who is this person?
This is Marty from Vegas.
Marty, I am very, very impressed that he knows of my affiliation with Derry, Pennsylvania. That is fantastic.
Yeah, what you got to do is just go on Twitter and type in #SpacedOutRadio, and it'll pop up there for you.
I will do that tonight before I go to bed. I promise you that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Gentlemen, I got to let you guys go because I got to get ready for the news here. But much love to both of you, and thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure.
Genuinely love both of you guys. Thank you so much for having me, Dave.
All right, boys. We'll talk to you
Good night.
soon.
All right.
Good night. Get
Bye.
better.
Bye-bye.
There we go. There we go. Hey there, Stone. How are you? Good to have you here. You know, I'm really glad that entire clown bullshit is over. You know, where all these people were dressing up like clowns and just kind of standing on street corners and all of this. I'm glad a bunch of them, you know, or that stopped, because I don't know. I mean, that just looked dumb. Okay, and I hate clowns. Excuse me. I'm sorry for yawning. You know, I'm so glad that clown thing is over. I really am. It'll probably start up again too soon. You know, my favorite part, Gil in the chat room, my favorite part about it was watching all the videos of you know, people driving away or driving the car, and the clown is standing on the middle of the street, and then the guys just get out and, you know, beat the tar out of him. You know, I mean, those clowns, they didn't care who they scared. Mothers with small kids or adults or seniors or anything. It got a little bit out of hand there, and sometimes a little vigilante justice on the clowns is worth it, you know. And it probably felt good too. Let's just be honest. It probably did. Here we go. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. I'm the guy with the voice behind the microphone, and we love it that you're tuned on in. Thank you so much. Want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Speaking of the news, the news is always changing, which is why we bring you the weird, the wacky, and the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, because we try to bring you the entertainment. We're going to start off with a little UFO action here. You know, did you hear the story over the weekend about Demi Lovato? Well, guess what? She's got aliens. She's got aliens. All right? Demi apparently took to Instagram, shared several photos of what appeared to be a spaceship, imploring humanity to make contact in an effort to help change the destructive habits destroying our planet. Why was she there? She was at Joshua Tree hanging out with some friends and Dr. Stephen Greer, who is, according to his Instagram bio, one of the world's foremost authorities on the subject of UFOs, ET intelligence, initiating peaceful contact with ET civilizations, and trying to charge for interviews where he wants the questions up front. She went on to explain that her photos and videos were just some sort of evidence that came from the stars of the desert sky that could no longer be ignored and must be shared immediately, and then encouraged her followers to try and make contact themselves using an app. She ended the post with saying, "Happy communicating." Oh, isn't that nice? Very polite. You know, from Disney girl to now ET expert, all because of hanging out in Joshua Tree with Dr. Stephen Greer. Well, hey, Demi, come on this show. Let's talk about them aliens you may have. What do you say? Let's do this. I'd love to do that show, honestly. And she's beautiful, too. Let's just be honest. She's beautiful. Anyways, moving on here. This isn't good news, because one of the most respected scientists that is very popular, Neil deGrasse Tyson, fantastic mustache, by the way, on him. That's a solid lip blade on Mr. Tyson. He's saying that an asteroid with the diameter of a refrigerator could strike the Earth the day before the November election. But thankfully, it's not large enough to do any serious damage. The famed astrophysicist said the space rock, known as 2018 VP1, is hurtling towards Earth at a speed of 25,000 miles per hour and may clip the planet on November 2nd. It may buzz cut Earth on November 2nd, he says, the day before the presidential election. This is all on his Instagram. Still like his mustache. But he added that the flying object is nothing to lose sleep over. It's not going to be big enough to cause any harm. So if the world ends in 2020, it won't be the fault of the universe. NASA has previously identified the asteroid rocketing towards Earth, but put its chances of actually striking the planet at less than 1%. It currently has a 0.41% chance of entering our planet's atmosphere, but if it did, it would disintegrate due to the extremely small size. Oh, somebody would get a good meteorite out of it at least. All right. You guys, normally I try and stay away from sports here because I am a sports guy and I'm a sports junkie. And every now and again, we have to say some sports because this one bothered me, okay? This happened last year. But a federal grand jury in Texas has now indicted former Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim's former employee, Eric Kay, on 2 felony counts in the overdose death of pitcher Tyler Skaggs. Yeah, apparently the U.S. District Court in Fort Worth says the indictment charges Kay with distributing the fentanyl that resulted in Skaggs' death last year. On or about June 30th, 2019, Eric Prescott Kay, the defendant, did knowingly and intentionally distribute a mixture and substance containing a detectable amount of fentanyl, a Schedule II controlled substance. And the use of said substance resulted in the death and seriously bodily injury of Skaggs. It also alleges Kay and unspecified others conspired to possess with the intent to distribute a substance containing fentanyl beginning in or before 2017. An attorney for Kay and a spokesman for the Skaggs family didn't immediately respond to requests for comment. Kay, who worked with the Angels Media Relations Department for 24 years, was arrested by federal authorities August 7th on a charge of distributing fentanyl. He hadn't entered a plea. The deadline to indict Kay was extended twice after the initial charge, while both sides discussed a plea bargain. The 27-year-old Skaggs died in his hotel on July 1st, 2019, before the Angels were scheduled to start a 3-game series against the Texas Rangers. The toxicology report by the Tarrant County Medical Examiner found fentanyl and oxycodone in his system and listed the death of results of alcohol, fentanyl, and oxycodone intoxication with terminal aspiration of gastric contents. According to the affidavit supporting the criminal complaint, Kay visited Skaggs late at night on June 30th in response to his request for pills. The filing included text messages between the two men. How many, Kay wrote? Just a few, Skaggs reported, like 5. Word. Investigators found a counterfeit oxycodone pill laced with fentanyl in Skaggs' room and white residue on the floor and tested positive for fentanyl. It was later determined that, for the fentanyl in Skaggs' system, he would not have died. Drug Enforcement Administration Special Agent Jeffrey Lindenberg said. Kay and Skaggs had a history of narcotic transactions, the affidavit alleged, and Kay provided opioids to Skaggs and others in their place of employment while they were working. If convicted, Kay faces a maximum of 20 years to life in prison for the distribution, resulting in death charges, and a maximum of 20 years in prison for the conspiracy to possess with the intent to distribute charge. He'll be back in court later this month. Now, if you're a hockey fan, you know the voice of Doc Emmerich. Yes, Mike Emmerich, literally probably the best American to call a hockey game. Great voice, fantastic pipes. Well, he's decided to retire after nearly half a century of broadcasting. I didn't realize Doc was 74 years old. He goes, I hope I can handle retirement okay, he said Sunday night from his home in Michigan, especially since I've never done it before. But I've been extremely lucky for 50 years, and NBC has been so good to me, especially since the pandemic, when I was allowed to work from a home studio NBC created. Now into my golden years, this just seems to be the time is right. Plus, I've now accumulated enough frequent flyer miles to not go anywhere. Emmerich has been broadcasting professionally since the early 1970s, started out by calling college and minor league hockey games. Born in Indiana, he spent the time calling games for the East Coast minor league. Oh, that's a tough league. And like the Hershey Bears, Maine Mariners in his early years before joining the New Jersey Devils and Philadelphia Flyers in the 1980s. He would remain the voice of the Devils for 21 seasons. His national work is what made him a household name among hockey fans. He's worked for every national sports network imaginable at one point or another, called 22 Stanley Cup Finals, and did a play-by-play for hockey at 6 Olympic Games. He moved full-time to NBC in 2011, becoming their main play-by-play man for games. You know what? Guy is a legend. I actually got to meet him once when he was in Vancouver. And he was a nice guy. Very nice guy. Good for him. Good for him. He deserves that. And you know what? He was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2008, receiving the Foster Hewitt Memorial Award for outstanding contributions to hockey broadcasting. He was then inducted into the United States Hockey Hall of Fame in 2011, becoming the first media member to do so and open the doors for that. 5 others have since followed in his footsteps. Good job, Duck. Good career. Very good career. We'll clap for you on that because you're a solid voice. Solid voice. The dune sands of southern Peru, etched centuries ago with geoglyphs of a hummingbird, a monkey, and an orca, and a figure some would dearly love to believe is an astronaut. How? Well, pardon me. Well, they've now discovered the form of an enormous cat lounging across a desert hillside. Have you seen pictures of this? It's actually incredible. The feline Nazca line dates back to 200 BC and 100 BC, emerged during work to improve access to one of the hills that provides a natural vantage point for which many of the designs can be seen. A UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1994, the Nazca lines, which are made up of hundreds of geometric and zoomorphic images, were created by removing rocks and earth to reveal the contrasting material below. They lie 250 miles south of Lima and cover about 450 square kilometers of Peru's arid coastal plain. The figure was scarcely visible. It was about to disappear because of its situated on quite a steep slope that's prone to the effects of natural erosion, Peru's Culture Ministry stated. Over the past week, the geoglyph was cleaned and conserved and shows a feline figure in profile with its head facing the front. It said that the cat was 37 meters long and with well-defined lines that varied in width between 30 centimeters and 40 centimeters. It's quite striking that we are still finding new figures, but we also know that there are more to be found. Johnny Isla, Peru's chief archaeologist for the lines, over the past few years, the use of drones has allowed us to take images of hillsides. Isla says that between 80 and 100 new figures have emerged over recent years in the Nazca and Palpa valleys, all of which have predated the Nazca culture. There are some that are smaller, some that are bigger, drawn onto hillsides and clearly belong to an earlier tradition. The archaeologist said the cats had to be put out during the late Paracas era, which ran from 500 BC to 200 AD. We know that from comparing iconographies. Paracas textiles, for example, show birds, cats, and people that are easily comparable to these geoglyphs. Moving on. Old homes usually have a couple of secrets hiding behind their walls, but they're not usually this boozy. A couple in upstate New York made what they call a wild discovery when they were uncovering what appears to be an old bootlegger's supply hidden in the walls of their house. They also say that upon further inspection, they found hidden compartments with more bottles dating back to the 1920s stashed away. Nick Drummond, who owns the house with his partner Patrick in Ames, New York, spoke to the media confirming that so far it's about 60 bottles actually, and there are more compartments we have to open in the floor, I definitely think there's more to find. Maybe 30% of the bottles are full. According to him, they had previously heard stories about the house. We were actually told by a neighbor that the home was rumored to have been built by a bootlegger and a German baron, and found the story endearing, but it took with a grain of salt. We never thought any part of a story was actually true. Drummond explained, the more we kept digging, the more we found, too. We set up an Instagram account called @bootleggerbungalow. We've been trying to document the discoveries alongside our renovation. Our followers have actually been helping us solve this mystery. The bottles date back to the 1920s. How cool is that? That stuff never happens to me. You know, you got people trying to, they're doing a little bit of digging inside the closet or something like that, and there's a hidden wall or a hidden gem. Trust me, I'm curious enough. I've looked in my house. There's nothing spectacular here. Nothing. I would love to find something like that, though. That would just be awesome. Let's move on. Oh, Shirky Poo throws up another great white shark thing. Fatal shark attacks have spiked in Australia, and scientists believe they may have linked it to global warming. Of course they did. 2020 has seen the country's highest number of people being killed by the animals since 1934. As of today, there have been 7 recorded deaths in 2020 compared to 0 in 2019. The most recent death was earlier this month after a surfer went missing October 9th. The man had suffered a serious shark bite, which witnesses saw happen at a beach near Esperance in Western Australia. After days of searching for the man, his body was tragically never found. That's because he was dinner for one of these great whites. He was marked as Australia's 7th shark attack victim. While in 2019, no shark-related deaths happened. The years prior to that saw 2 deaths each, demonstrating the sharp spike in deaths this year. Though it should be noted, the rate of attacks without fatalities has stayed consistent. Colin Brown, a professor at Macquarie University's Department of Biological Sciences in Sydney, has done the year a bit of a blip. He says the long-term average is one fatality per year. So 7 is a long way above that, there is no doubt. While the shark attacks aren't unheard of in Australia, these fatality rates are. Some have said this is simply bad luck, but others think it could be going on to climate crisis. Really? How do you tie this into climate? Look, I'm not a climate change denier, okay? Not at all. But why do we have to put everything? Oh, sharks are eating humans. It's climate change. How about we just look at it and say, we're putting more things in the ocean. The sharks like to swim in the ocean. They might want to eat in the ocean. And you look like a seal on a surfboard, and therefore they're hungry. They're taking a bite out of you because that's what sharks do. They're not there for pets. They're not there for anything. They are there to murder. Now, I say that with a preface that sharks, are not meant to be pets. They are not meant to be friendly. They're cool, though. They're gorgeous. Okay? They need to be saved, and their home needs to be protected. That's why we don't need to go into the water to become a food source. But nobody believes me. We want to blame global warming on the sharks doing their job at being sharks. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows, and it's not what kind of garnish should a shark use when they're feeding on a human in Australia. It's not global warming. It's sharks being sharks. They're predators. They eat everything. And we're in their space. It's real simple. You don't want to get attacked or eaten by a shark, don't go in the ocean. Real simple. Anywho, what would you like a non-paranormal people to know about the paranormal in today's Thought of the Dave? Start off with Marty, another fantastic clown. Thank you, Marty. Just because you haven't experienced something yourself doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Be more open-minded. Gorgeous Jules. It is normal. It is everywhere. And just because you have the ability to perceive some things, others don't, isn't abnormal. Brett, whether you believe in the woo or not, the woo believes in you. Quinoa, I like normies to understand that it's not scary. Not every black shadow is a demon. And stop thinking everything you see on paranormal TV, reality shows, and paranormal movies is real. It is all entertainment. Dominic, the light realm is, so this is also after the afterlife as well. Look at the wilderness. Look at the suffering slaves in third world countries. Look at people in wealthy countries. What are their beliefs? Craig, something real is happening to some. All right, moving on. Oh, where'd that go? Son of a gun. Where'd it go? Let's go this way. I lost a bunch of them. There they are. All right. Wayne, life is more than our physical bodies. We do live on. Alex, then all of it can be solved, demonstrated, filmed, just like anything else that exists. Melinda, everything is energy in motion. Everything is consciousness. Anselmo, I don't speak about it because it makes me look like I'm crazy, and I keep the knowledge to myself. Richard, not everything is demonic, hardly ever, and no, we can't solve a haunting in under 60 minutes. Kevin and Kevin's beard, two separate entities, by the way. Trying to keep an open mind until you have witnessed it firsthand, you'll always be skeptical. Becky in Manitoba, we are spiritual beings. The paranormal is in our roots. Oh, how true. How true. Alex, we need money to solve stuff, and without it, we're not going to get much done. So, hey, known paranormal people, you are beautiful. Gail, that not believing doesn't change the reality of it. Paranormal exists, and just like other mysteries, your unbelief is irrelevant, and you will struggle much less if you let go and accept it for what it is. Kevin, if you don't know what chemicals the government put on the back of that stamp, why in the heck would you lick it? Very nice, Kevin. Davey, that the paranormal means not yet accepted as normal, but that it will be seen as normal eventually. Devin, just because one doesn't understand something or a subject that may be currently outside their frame of reference of existence does not mean it isn't natural. The paranormal lawyer, Michael, it's not normal. Daryl wants the truth. Kim says if it exists, and just because one has not had an experience with it doesn't mean it isn't real. Very rarely is it demonic or harmful. And, yeah, we'll move on. Barry gets the final word that it is real, and we are closer now than ever to understanding how much of it at any time in human history. Well, that's probably a good place to end it. Thank you to everybody who participated in the Thought of the Day. We'll do it all again when we get together tomorrow night. And you can find the question during the day on our Facebook page and on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio, which is always a fun time. Thanks to Captain Shirk for getting the news ready on the SOR Newswire. And, of course, to Bryan Bowden and the crypto guru Ronald Murphy for coming on in and hanging out, talking some monsters with us. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, in your home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone participating in our chat rooms tonight on LGAB, YouTube, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club on our website, and all the snarkers hanging out on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. Thank you for a great evening. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But tomorrow, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we got room for them too. Good night.